morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. What do we call them? I know a lot of people go with Misery Monday when a team loses. What do you call it when the team just keeps humming along?
Victory Monday, right?
Yeah, but Victory Monday doesn't work. It's like, it's like everybody trying to force Battle of the Beltways yesterday, or Battle of the Beltway, which is not a thing. That's the only complaint.
Yeah, but it's fun to say.
Yeah, it's fun to say, except it's nonsense.
Who cares?
And everybody knows I love Jim. Jim's, friend. I don't know Tony, so I don't have anything to say about Tony. I don't think I've ever checked. That's not true. Where did we bumped into him somewhere? Where the hell were we? One of the Super Bowls we bumped into Tony Romo when he was playing and had a conversation.
Well, he wasn't playing in the Super Bowl, but yeah.
No, not in the Super Bowl. Never did that. We had a conversation, and he was a very nice guy. I enjoyed it, but I don't know him, so I don't feel the need to defend him. And he was trying to, he couldn't stop bringing it up. Whoa. It's this Battle of the Beltway. There is no such thing. What? And people that I like were saying it yesterday. People I respect were saying it.
Well, at least we know one thing. The Ravens are they run the DMV.
They're not in the DMV. They'll never be in the DMV unless they move. It'd be terrible. I hope that's never the case. God, I just wish that someone who knows something about this area could have been involved to step in and be like, hey, guys, the thing about this is...
even if someone had said that, would that?
Wrong. You think they were just so committed to it that they wouldn't have cared at this point?
I was like, we've got a lot about the Beltway.
Yeah, we printed the T-shirts.
We got a lot of bits here for the.
We're heavily invested in this thing that isn't real, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. The Battle of the Beltway. What Beltway? What are you talking about?
$6.95 and $4.95.
Right, that would make Battle of the Beltways work, except for lots of cities have beltways.
We can start calling when Baltimore plays Kansas City,
They do that with Masson tries to do that bit where they're like, all right, well, we're local, so we shouldn't embarrass ourselves, so we'll call it the Battle of the Beltways. But again, that doesn't make it unique. How many cities have beltways?
What do we call it? Just the Beltway Battle.
Stop it. God.
I want it to work, too.
So. Do you? Stinks.
There should be a way to make it please everyone, right?
That's the only thing I can complain about from yesterday. That's how good yesterday was. The only thing I can complain about is this obsessiveness over the idea that there is some sort of beltway that connects Baltimore and D.C., which there most certainly isn't.
So what if they added, what if they added a third beltway?
That looped both of them? Then
so
we could talk.
So it'd be like a
giant, a hyper beltway, if you will. This is the America that Elon Musk wants. He wants everything. God, man. All right. Hi, Glenn Clark Radio. Hello.
Battle of the...
What's that?
There's got to be something there, right? Like, what is in between? There's really nothing in between Baltimore and D.C.
There's that. I mean, that's...
It's not a battle.
I have no... Well, there is. There's a parkway. There's a parkway that connects the two cities. That's a thing that exists. It's literally called the Baltimore. And if you wanted to call it the Battle for BWI, you could do that. Okay. But that's also infuriating. Some of these things are infuriating. Like, it's infuriating as a... Hi. All right. Now, we're so far away from anything that was relevant this morning. It's infuriating that the Baltimore airport, which is very clearly just outside of Baltimore, has to share a name with another city. Like... I get that the cities are closer than most cities are to each other, so, I understand. But, my God, this one is for Baltimore. Now, there's reasons. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
We'll call it the Thurgood.
Lots of things I'm willing to do. I'm not willing to do this.
Thurgood Marshall Airport. Just start calling it that instead.
Maybe. I mean, I guess I'd prefer that, but it's what it is. You're not getting away from it. Hi. All right, let's move on. Let's change the topic. Good to be back. Thank you to Stan and Gary and Griffin for handling things on Friday as I was baking in the Indianapolis sun, which was an unseasonably warm day in Indy on Friday. I get there. They're like, here's your broadcast position. And I said, oh, cool. No cover.
Geez.
Well, they tried to.
Okay.
But the table was bigger than the area where
the tent and awning or whatever.
Yeah,
they had.
and so they couldn't put it underneath the tent. so it was out in front of the awning. And I was like, okay, that's okay. All right, there were other issues, but we had a wonderful time.
Let's dive into it.
I don't want to. Had a wonderful time. Always appreciate USA Lacrosse having me out. Wow, got to. I will tell you, it's a little intimidating to share a hotel gym with world-class athletes. It's a bit much. Bit much when you go to get on the elliptical and you're looking over like, that person doesn't look like I do.
Yeah, Pat Cavanaugh right next to you.
Yeah, a little bit much, a little intimidating. But good guys on that team. Only a couple of locals on that team. Ryan Conrad is a local guy who was on that team and had a nice weekend. And it'll be interesting to see as we look 4 years from now to the Olympics in 2028, who's going to end up being a part of who's hell-bent on it. And who wants to play sixes and play for the World Championships in field lacrosse? I don't know. There's still so much to be learned. And I chatted with Andy Shea, the Yale coach, who's the coach of the sixes team for the Olympics, and he admittedly is not sure yet what this roster looks like. And are there guys that aren't? Are there guys that are like, hey, call me back when we get a little closer to the Olympics? Like, call me back then and we'll talk about it. And I don't know what the answer to that is. I remember I asked Pat Spencer when we had him on, now that it's an Olympic sport, would he think about it? Like, would he consider? And he was like, dude, I can't. Like, I'm trying to stay in the NBA. Every ounce of my thought process has to be related to basketball. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I do get that. But I wonder if there are other guys that just right now are like, I'm not really invested in 4 years to prepare. But you get a little bit closer, and they're like, okay, let's talk. I'm in. So we'll see how that goes. Also, those rosters can only be 12 guys. Like, you can only have 10 field players on the Olympic roster, which is nuts. That is extraordinarily difficult. The women's team loaded, man. Charlotte North, Izzy Skane, like crazy amount of talent on the women's team. Had a great time out in Indianapolis. Good to be back. If you missed Project Game Day, shame on you. You can find it right now in the greatest hits. You can find it on the YouTube or the Facebook. Go check it out. We do it every game day this season. Myself, Rita, Femi, Andrew Stecca. KZ no-showed us yesterday. No call, no show, which isn't true. He told me he wasn't. He went up to see his son play soccer, and he was like, dude, I haven't watched the game. I don't want to lie to the people and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. And I said, when has that ever stopped you before? Ken, let's be honest.
We know it's just because he knew that he couldn't actually
It was
going
to be very difficult for him to fire John Harbaugh yesterday. Yeah. What was he going to fire him over? He was going to try to fire him over the end of the half. There were still people that were trying to cling to that.
They played it.
Look, man,
I mean,
when it's worth it, I will join you. And a week ago, there was warranted criticism for how the Ravens ended the first half. 100% warranted. Incongruent between the two things that they did in the Bengals game, where they ran the ball and gained no yards on second down and then called timeout. Incongruent. This week, I can't join you. If it had been first and goal and the Ravens were still running up-tempo, then we could talk. But it wasn't first and goal. The notion that they just needed to get off 3 more plays to end the no. They could have had as many as 6 plays still. And the up-tempo was working, and they needed 7 points. And if slowing things down caused them to get out of rhythm and they had only kicked the field goal and that's how the half had ended, then even a scenario in which you let the Bengals get back down and score 3 points, what's 7 minus 3, Griffin?
Before.
Is that greater than or less than 3?
That would be greater than.
There is no argument for what you're arguing about. There's just not. Like, I know that when you've clung to a narrative, you're looking for anything that can back up that narrative. I get it. In the real world, in the world in which I continue to be the one guy still sitting here waving my arms around like, hey, let's just not be weirdos on the internet for a second and try to talk like adult humans. In the real world, it doesn't work that easily. If it's first and goal, we can talk. If you know at that point that you got 3 plays to either score a touchdown or kick a field goal, then you make sure that the other team can't see the ball. And even then, that can get complicated, right? What if there's a penalty? What if, But in a normal world, you get the first and goal, you have control of that situation. Until it's first and goal, when it's 1st and 10, and you might run 3 plays, get a first down, but not score a touchdown, you need to make sure you have enough time to run enough plays to score a touchdown. The priority has to be scoring a touchdown. And on Project Gameday, which will return next Monday night, late night show following Ravens Buccaneers, PressBoxOnline.com/gameday, as always, is how you watch it. Next Monday night, we'll talk about that then. But last night, Andrew Stecca was like, hey, I also think there's something to be said for just continuing the rhythm and making sure you don't bog yourself down and only kick a field goal. And there's something esoteric to that too, like the rhythm. But from a tangible standpoint, you just got to keep scoring points.
And you also know that you have a weapon on the field goal block team now with Ben Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, right?
So
although he didn't come up with another one.
I mean, they came close on that whatever.
Well, that was the goofy part. The goofy part being they didn't really.
Yeah.
We all thought they did on the extra point, but that wasn't the case. It was just an awful, awful kick. I mean, he made it, so it didn't matter. But yeah, it was really weird. Look, my column today at PressBoxOnline.com is about how the word I came up with afterwards was ho-hum or humdrum, whatever you want to call it. It was just kind of a game that happened, which is a testament about how good the Ravens are, because factually it was a great win over a really good team, an inspired team, an inspired fan base. It was all of those things. And a game in which they were tested, but not even really pushed. And, it looks like a one-score game because, legally speaking, it was a one-score game. But the Ravens were in field goal range. It's only a one-score game because they didn't want to score any more points. They punted once after the interception until the game ended. Once. They had 3 drives that didn't end in points. One of which was the pick, which was already in scoring range. They were already in field goal range at that point. So that would have been a scoring drive had it not been for the pick. One of which was the end of the game. The only time they touched the ball and didn't get down the field was in a 3-and-out early in the game. One time. All game that they didn't methodically move the ball downfield. It was an outstanding performance. But the nice thing about where we are now, particularly considering where we were after 2 weeks of the season, is that we were like, it happened. Yeah, it was cool. Like, it doesn't even really stand out all that much. There's nothing about that game that we're going to particularly remember. Within 3 weeks, I don't know that we'll be able to remember a single play from that football game.
Well, it's Battle of the Beltways, so we'll
remember that.
That'll stick out.
It is legendary.
Notable.
But like, I don't know if you put a gun to our head in 3 weeks, and first of all, what are we doing?
Well,
like, it's very aggressive. But if you did and said, name a play from the game in 3 weeks.
It'd be Travis Jones' first sack. Obviously.
Sure.
Or Unique Ngakwe's first sack back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, those will be very memorable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it would be. I don't know what play.
Like I think it's gonna be the Ben Cleveland.
Maybe.
Fingertip.
Maybe we can remember that Ben
fingernails
Cleveland.
today. And,
maybe somehow.
Being able to block that field.
That's it. It was just methodical. Now, yes, we can continue to talk about the defense. We can continue to talk about like whether or not this is a championship level defense, and it's a fair question. Yesterday they made some plays. They made enough plays, but they weren't particularly good. Jayden Daniels is particularly good, and the Commanders made some really high-level plays. Like that thing on 4th down to the end zone, that's indefensible, man. I don't even know what to say. It's the only time he threw left all game, which makes it even more particularly indefensible. Like, what? You're throwing left? You don't do that. But what's Brandon Stevens supposed to do in that spot? Like, what in the world? All he can do is be all over Terry McLaurin. And if you put the ball into the perfect spot, they're going to make that play. And give Jayden Daniels credit. Jayden Daniels is really good.
Yeah, he looks really good.
He's really good.
Which is why it feels like it feels like a good win. Like there's nothing.
It is a good win. It's definitively a good win.
And like
but it's also
there's no reason to complain about anything because that's clearly a very good quarterback.
I agree with that, except for the fact that it's not the first evidence we have about the shakiness of the Ravens' defense, right? Like if the Ravens otherwise had been outstanding defensively, and then yesterday they give up some yards to Jayden Daniels, you're like, okay, that's going to happen. And
then you look at who they have played over the last 4 weeks.
Yes, and that goes back to the point that Aaron Schatz made. Aaron Schatz made that point last week, which is you think that the defense is really bad. It's not the pass defense. Nobody thinks that about the run defense. You think the pass defense is really bad. It's not really bad. It's average, which is a much fairer way of saying it, right? Like if you even it out, if you take into the account the caliber of competition they've played, they're an average pass defense. Well, nobody's going to celebrate and say, we're number 16. You're not going to hang a banner for being a mediocre pass defense. Like, yes, I do think that in context, that's a fairer way of saying it, right? Like, you played a really brutal schedule, and because of that, it looks really bad. It's not really bad. But even if you acknowledge it's average, it's still average. Like, it's still middle of the road. And you can be better than middle of the road. That means there's a lot of room for ascending from that point. So we can talk about it, and I think it's fair to talk about it. We can have conversations. Malik Harrison wasn't even active yesterday. Roquan Smith does not look like the same guy as we've seen for the last 2 years. Now, how much of that in hindsight is about not having Patrick Queen next to him, which is an interesting question that we were all talking about what it would look like the other way, what it would look like for Patrick Queen to not have Roquan Smith next to him. Are we learning that it doesn't look the same for Roquan Smith because he doesn't have Patrick Queen next to him? I don't know.
Well, the most impactful former Raven on the Steelers right now, or at least yesterday, was Jeremiah Moon. So
no, I didn't.
He blocked the punt yesterday.
No, how about that? Good for Jeremiah Moon. I put the Red Zone channel on after we finished game day for a little bit, and I unfortunately saw the Hutchinson thing. I was watching that. I was like, God, that sucks, man. God, that sucks. And we were just talking about how good the Lions were, and I still think the Lions are really good, but yeah, that changes a lot, man. And that was just brutal, and even worse because it happens in a blowout game. Like there's nothing still to be determined at that point. And this is the nature of the NFL. In the NFL, you don't have. It's not like college where your roster's so big that you can just empty the bench. Like you got to keep your guys in for a while because you only have 46 active players. I guess it's more than that now.
Well, you rarely do get up 47-3 in games in the NFL.
Yeah, so. It doesn't happen much. It doesn't happen much. And it wasn't 47-3 when he broke his leg. But it was
36 or something.
It was lopsided already at that point. Anyway, the moral of the story being, Roquan Smith does not look like the same guy. We'll see moving forward what that looks like. The Marcus Williams conversation has to continue and perhaps get louder. I don't know internally. Like, Bo Braid was active yesterday, and maybe there's a world in which we're going to see more Bo Braid moving forward. I'm not sure. I do think that might be the side of the ball, or that might be the area where you're addressing or you're looking to address at the trade deadline. And it will be interesting to see what might be out there. Budda Baker's name has come up a little bit as someone that might be available at the deadline. The Cardinals are who we think they are. Like, they win a game and we're like, oh. And then you remember they're the Cardinals. So we'll see how that goes. All right, real quick, before we get to Trey Wingo, can you remind everybody what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland?
Hopefully you were down at Live Casino Hotel Maryland yesterday, because every time that Baltimore, or Washington's football team for that matter, scores a touchdown during home games, Live Reward members will get $7 in free slot play. Have to have your Live Rewards card inserted into that slot machine, any slot machine on the floor, and be actively playing. But once they score, that prize will populate for you. $7 in free slot play when Baltimore or Washington score during their home games. At Arundel Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I saw this from our next guest yesterday. Run, Ravens, run. Baltimore has now outrushed its first 6 opponents of the season by at least 100 yards. Here's the entire list of teams in NFL history that have done that to start the season. No one. 0.0 was what he shared. He, of course, I always enjoy all of this man's work. He's a podcaster these days. He does the pregame power-up. He is Mr. Trey Wingo, and he is back with us now here on GCR. Trey, what's going on, brother? How are you?
It's good to be with you guys. And you see what's going on with the Ravens, and you're like, what the hell happened the first 2 weeks?
Right. Right.
How did that happen? And it was really interesting because they just, especially in the first game against the Chiefs, they really didn't use Derrick Henry very much at all. And it felt like they didn't really use him much in week 2 against the Raiders. And suddenly they were like, well, we brought him here for a reason, and bang, it's been remarkable.
Trey, it's funny because we went back to when the Ravens signed Derrick Henry, and at the time I said, look, I'm fine with this. I think we can all debate the wisdom of spending money on running backs or whether or not you should be looking to upgrade at wide receiver. I think there's warranted, but Lamar Jackson plus Derrick Henry really feels like it should be pretty indefensible. And now we're 6 weeks into the season, and the answer is definitive. It is basically indefensible.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, I do think that there was a sort of an evolution of the offensive line. You started the season with 3 different offensive linemen than you had the year before. So I get that's part of it. But, what really helps a struggling offensive line? Derrick effing Henry. I mean, he's really good, guys. And he defies all logic if you think about it, because all running backs are supposed to wear down, and a guy like Derrick, who is bigger than most of them and probably takes as many hits as anybody with the number of carries he's had over his career, the fact that he is still going at the pace he's going is one of the more unusual things I can think of.
Well, I think it's just a lesson that we all have to start eating plain bowls of kale and spinach. And since we're not going to do that, none of us are going to be like Derrick Henry. That's just the way that it's going to go. Trey, I think the fascinating part to me is that yesterday, you look at a box score and you say, oh, it's another Derrick Henry game. The truth is, it wasn't even really a Derrick Henry game until the end, which that's the story, right? Like the story of a Ravens team that had struggled to hold on to big leads for years. And I think what made the Raiders thing so infuriating was you've got Derrick Henry now. This isn't supposed to happen. And, again, it took a couple, but this is exactly what it is. Like the ability for the Ravens to play bully ball, to get out in front, do what they do offensively, and then say you're not welcome back into this football game is the presence of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and, really good teams, to me, have an identity and a culture, right? You look at what the Lions are doing. They have an identity and a culture that stems from their head coach. You look what the Chiefs are doing. Whether you like it or not, they have an identity that stems from Andy Reid and obviously Patrick Mahomes. The Ravens are one of those rare teams in the NFL that have an identity, and it starts with John, and it goes through Lamar, and it goes through this Derrick Henry-led machine. And in so many ways, guys, it's a throwback to the Cowboys of the 90s, if you'll allow me, because they were determined that they would continue to run the ball, even if it wasn't effective in the first half, because they knew those 3- and 4-yard gains in the first and second quarter with Emmitt Smith and the Great Wall of Dallas, arguably the greatest offensive line in the history of the NFL, those were going to be 7, 8, 12, 15-yard gains late in the third and early fourth quarter. And it feels like that's where we are with Baltimore. I mean, they have a really solid plan of how they want to beat you.
He is Trey Wingo. He is with us here on GCR. Trey, admittedly, we here in Baltimore hadn't always watched every ounce of Derrick Henry. We saw it in the games against Baltimore, right? Like we saw it in the playoff game a few years ago, as infuriating as that was. But this thing where early on yesterday, the Commanders seemed to have the run in check, right? Like they really didn't allow early on Derrick Henry to make the difference. And the Ravens, only had 3 points in the first quarter, and you were like, wow, you got to give kudos to the Commanders. But the thing that I've learned about this is the Derrick Henry experience. Like, you think at the beginning of the game, you're like, oh, we got this. But you're not up for 4 quarters of going against this dude. This dude is just a different human, and you can't do it for 4 quarters against him.
You're right. It's a battle. Much like the league itself, playing Derrick Henry is a battle of attrition.
Yeah.
Cool. You're ready for that challenge in the first quarter, coming off pregame warm-ups and the music and the hype and the stretching and all that kind of stuff and the crowd going nuts. And then after you've been hit 6 times, you may not like it as much.
Right.
And that's sort of where we are, Now, again, as I do believe, from my perspective, I think the Ravens are the biggest threat to Kansas City.
Yeah.
But the problem for me is, and everybody else, and I know Baltimore fans probably, even though they don't want to hear it, they know it and they feel it. This all looks great in September and October.
They got to prove it in January.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. But they are absolutely doing the thing that they want to do now with the way they want to do it. And it's look, I really love teams that know who they are. And the Ravens are one of those teams that know exactly who they are and how they want to do things. And that's just really fun for me. It's just really fun.
He is, of course, Trey Wingo. DraftKings Network is where you find him these days. Trey, I want to move on from Derrick Henry and talk about a couple other things, but my last one would be, why? And I've ran it by a few people around the NFL, like that the Ravens probably took advantage of a bit of a market inefficiency, right? Like that. One theory that people have, linebackers have largely gotten a little bit smaller, and that is also part of the story. But the market inefficiency of we're willing to spend extraordinary amounts of money on mid-level wide receivers, but yet Derrick Henry was out there for $8 million, and there wasn't an overwhelming amount of interest. Like, why? Why wouldn't other teams around the league, and I know the Cowboys are getting killed for it, but it's not just the Cowboys, right? Like, there's an awful lot of teams that would be better football teams if they had Derrick Henry. Why wouldn't there be more interest? Why couldn't teams look at this and say, hey, maybe we could do something like this and it might work for us?
Well, I guess it's kind of like the theory of, look, I'm not comparing these two players. I'm just using a mindset.
Okay.
Like Tom Brady eventually has to slow down, right?
Yeah.
Like eventually he can't be at 44 what he was at 38. Eventually that has to, Derrick, didn't he have like a 1 year in high school where he had like 500 attempts?
Right? It's not.
Like, we're talking about a guy who has had a lot of time carrying the football. So you feel like at some point, it has to catch up to him, right? It just hasn't yet. Like, he's the outlier of outliers. I think that's part of it, especially when you look at the fragility of running backs. Christian McCaffrey was the offensive player of the year last year.
Yeah.
And, the trade from Carolina to San Francisco, he scored in, 10 straight games or something like that from 2022 going forward. And then, he gets hurt. So, and I know he's a smaller guy. I understand all of that. But, eventually the running back position is the one where it finally says not going to happen. And people are just wondering when that is. And clearly, so far through 6 games, dude's got plenty left in the tank.
There's no doubt about that. Trey, how, again, on the flip side, so Derrick Henry's outstanding. Lamar has been amazing, and everything's clicking offensively. They're the best offense in the NFL. On the flip side, the Ravens have a very mid, to say it the best way, defense. And that's, of course, as you know, something we're not used to in Baltimore is seeing the defense be middle of the road. I asked the question, does it matter? Like, we know the Chiefs have been better in recent years because their defense has been outstanding. We see what the Vikings are doing defensively this season. It's ungodly. But would you rather have that, or would you rather be the team with the seemingly unstoppable offense and a defense that's just okay?
Well, I mean, like, the only way I can answer that is I think you would always rather have the defense. I mean, if we're talking, and let's be honest, we're talking about the Super Bowl when we're talking about the Ravens, right?
Right.
Everything else we've done. We've done all this stuff. We've got the MVPs. We've won the divisions. We've done this. But when it's all said and done for the Lamar Jackson era in Baltimore, there's everything there except the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
So historically, those teams that have the better defense tend to fare better on that stage than teams that have the better offense, unless you're Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I said this going into last year's Super Bowl. I thought that at the time, the Chiefs defense was actually playing better than the 49ers defense.
Yep.
So yes, I mean, like, at the end of the day, the only thing that concerns me, and it's really not so much the run defense, it's the Ravens secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can do what you want against that Ravens secondary, and I think that's something that's going to have to be addressed. But this is the beauty of the way the Ravens play. They can mitigate that by holding on to the football for 45 minutes a game and limiting those opportunities against that porous secondary.
I think the question that's been, like, we've seen the Ravens connected to Davante Adams trade talks, and look, I am never going to be opposed to something like that, right? As good as the offense is, the notion that even just from a depth perspective, right? Like, wide receivers get hurt. Like, I am still in favor of it, but it feels like more, if you're going to be involved at the trade deadline, should the priority really be about addressing Marcus Williams has looked like a mess. Should it be about maybe trying to find a safety, another cover option? It seems like maybe that side of the ball perhaps is the area that you would prioritize going towards the deadline.
I would favor that side as well. Look, I mean, like, I'm reminded of the old line from the original Beverly Hills Cop, when Eddie Murphy and the two Beverly Hills Cops are trying to figure out how to cover themselves, and they come clean, and Eddie Murphy said, "I don't understand you guys. The lie was working. Like, it was working." The Ravens receivers, they're working. They had 9 catches in the first half yesterday. Mark Andrews was involved, got a touchdown pass. I mean,
Rashad Bateman very quietly has been really good. Yeah. Look, I get that there was criticism of Rashad Bateman in town because he was a first-round pick and you want him to be a rock star.
Right.
But nobody's paying attention. Rashad Bateman has been extraordinarily helpful for this team this season.
Yeah, I listen, with the way the offense is humming, it would be, for me, I would absolutely be more concerned about the other side of the ball, and that's where I would be more active.
I think that makes. Would you be opposed? I hear people make the argument about Adams, like, you don't want to rock the boat, and that's one of those things that sounds good to me, and it sounds like it makes sense. But then I say, yeah, but, like, having good players doesn't seem like that should be what would rock the boat, right? Like, imagine if you're not capable of absorbing another good player. That seems like that would be more of a statement of your own shortcomings.
Here are my concerns about Davante Adams.
Okay.
Right? First of all, I don't think the Ravens are going to give him away. The Raiders. I think they're adamant about, hey, they don't mind him stewing with him a little bit. And maybe that changes if the losses continue to mount for Antonio Pierce.
Right.
Yesterday was a bad game for them. But, there's a little bit of gamesmanship that's there involved. But the other thing is Davante, if he's not catching balls from Derek Carr, and if he's not catching balls from Aaron Rodgers, is he the same Davante Adams? Like, the thing that I've noticed about Aaron is that, and we're sort of steering off but it sort of isn't involved with Davante, is that Aaron always needs his guys, right? His guys, to understand the way he wants to play. And he and Davante are very much on that same page. So, like, how does it work if he comes in there and because Lamar is a very different quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. Let's just be honest about it. And is that a mesh point where they would find that chemistry that he has with Aaron because of the way they see the game, or the way he has been with Derek Carr, who's going to be out for a while? So I don't think the Saints have lost 4 straight after starting 2-0 like gangbusters. So I'm not sure they're all in on anything right now. That would be my only concern. And then there's the contract. What do you want to do with him? Because, He's got an aspire. He has no guaranteed money after this year, so he's going to want something that it's more than just good player wants trade. We need good player. Let's go. There's a lot more that goes into it.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, Trey. I'll wrap with this. It feels to me like there are 6 teams that have kind of separated themselves from the rest of the league at the moment, right? Like it feels like Kansas City, Minnesota, whatever order you want to put them in. Baltimore, Houston, Detroit, and I know the Hutchinson thing will hurt them, but I still think they're very good, and Green Bay have kind of separated themselves a little bit. After those 6, which teams do you still believe are viable threats to make a run to the Super Bowl at this point?
Buffalo is always so confounding. They start 3-0, they look like gangbusters, and the last 2 weeks. I mean, Josh Allen has been terrible the last 2 weeks against the Ravens. I mean, I get it. They couldn't stop Derrick Henry, but he was 16 of 29 in that game for under 200 yards, and he follows that up going 9 of 30, guys. 9 of 30 against Houston. People can talk about what's wrong with Mahomes or whether he never had a game where he's 9 of 30.
No doubt.
Okay, that is a glaring red flag. But the Bills always do this. They start out strong, and then they have this little lull, and then late November, early December, they go on a run and they fix it. But that run defense is not good for Buffalo. I really think those 6 teams, and honestly, I maybe eliminate 1 or 2 of them. I really like Green Bay, and this sounds terrible because they're one of the 2 unbeaten teams left. I am not sure about Minnesota.
I get it. I do. I get it, Trey. Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, hey, this is all great. It's like at a golf major. Wow, look at this guy leading after the first round, or look at this guy leading after 36 holes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you walk into Saturday, and for lack of a better term, the bleep changes a little bit, and suddenly it's a different dynamic. And are you up to that? It's great. In fact, the last team to start 5-0 and not make the playoffs was the Minnesota Vikings a few years ago. So, it's a totally different thing. I understand that. And it's a totally different team, totally different culture, totally different front office. I get all of that. A lot of people look great in September and October. Show me the teams that are going to find a way to do it in December and January, and then I'll really believe.
I get it. I completely understand what you're saying. And the one team that I'm still having a difficulty shaking is the Bengals, right? Like, I still think that they're a factor in all of this somehow. I know it's crazy to say that about a team that's lost 4 games, but I just can't doubt. I've watched that dude play really good football late in the season too frequently when he's healthy for me to be able to shake them and to think that they don't still have a run in them somehow. And their defense obviously looked a little bit better last night, but it was a low bar for them to look better. So
I was about to say, Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown pass at home in over 650 days.
I understand.
If your defense is ever going to look good,
it better look good.
The Giants at home. Yeah.
Trey, what all can we plug for you, man?
Oh, thank you, brother. We got the Alternate Routes podcast. We got the pregame power-up coming up on DraftKings Monday tonight. We got the huge game tonight, 6 o'clock Eastern, between the Jets and the Bills. And, the Jets are, if nothing else, they're infinitely interesting. We'll see what happens tonight. And that's every Monday and Thursday night, 6 o'clock. And I do some golf coverage for NBC and also for the PGA Tour. So just plucking along, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff.
At Wingo Z is how you follow him on Twitter. Trey, always appreciate it, man. You've always been great to us. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning. Look forward to chatting again soon.
Anytime, seriously. Anytime.
Thanks, buddy. Trey Wingo, love him, love talking football with him, and yeah, I get what he's saying. You're not going to get me to a place where I'm opposed, where I say no to Davante Adams, where it does go back to, there's a price and it's all got to fit, but I get I do understand what he's saying. And even Femi, who we know is, and we'll talk to him in a minute, we know he's in favor of Davante Adams, sort of came around to right, but let's start by looking to upgrade on you're capable of doing both. You can make multiple moves. The Ravens don't typically do that. They typically make a move. They just don't like giving up that many assets. And also there does become salary cap factors involved when you're trying to acquire multiple pieces. The more you see of this secondary, I hate continuing to come down on Marcus Williams. That's tough, man. It's tough. But we can't deny what our eyes are telling us either. Like, there's a problem there.
I mean, like, but there should be like a solution to it, right? Like, just he's playing every single snap of the game. So, shouldn't there be some sort of in between? Like, is Eddie Jackson that much of a butcher that they can't?
Oh, or do they just have to put Sanusi Kane or Bo Braid out there? I don't know. I thought that was interesting yesterday with Bo Braid that he was active. I mean, like, we'll see. All right, we are going to talk to Femi here in just a second, as we do every Monday. Today's show is also brought to you by County Sports Zone. CountySports.zone is the website. Everything you need to know about high school sports. Griffin was down at Spalding on Friday night.
Man.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're unbelievable.
Pretty legit.
I'm going to do their game
Concordia
against.
held them to a 3-and-out on their opening drive.
Oh?
So it was me and Coach Dominic D'Amico calling the game.
Yeah.
We were like, oh.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, and there's just no room for error against that team at all because
the reality of it. They're really, really good.
Final.
I'm going to do their game against Blakefield later this month, I think.
I mean, they haven't let up a point to any MIA.
I'm doing St. Francis IMG, actually, is the game that I'm doing. I think that one's going to be over at Morgan State. And you can find out about all of these interesting games. Look, if you're a frustrated Maryland football fan, and I can understand why, you might want to check out Malik Washington. You might want to do that to feel some amount of hope.
Yeah. You should.
Like,
there's a couple other Maryland players on that team as well.
There are.
So
That's a great point.
Definitely should check them out.
And you can find out all of that at CountySports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Femi's next, Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Pressbox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl XXXV Champion Femi Ayanbadejo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay or Pressbox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/GameDay.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right, back in here on GCR. The next Arthur Millette show. Remember, next week's schedule a little bit weird. Monday night football. So the Arthur Millette show will be Wednesday night. Next Wednesday night, the 23rd, we will be at the Gourmet at the Shops at Kenilworth. Come hang out with us, with Arthur Millette, with his special guest. You can find out more, pressboxonline.com/Millette. 1 week only on Wednesday night, next Wednesday, for the Arthur Millette Show. We will see you at the Gourmet at the Shops at Kenilworth. All right, it is a Monday edition of GCR, and every Monday we catch up with our friend, Mr. Femi Ayanbadejo, Super Bowl champion, Bet Yard AI, and he's back with us now. What's going on, brother? How are you?
Hey, guys, you guys caught me outside in this damn wind. How am I sounding? Am I sounding okay?
You sound fine to me. What's going on today? What are you doing?
I was just going for my Monday morning walk, and I got caught up reading in some data points on something, and before I knew it, I was like, oh, wow, it's 10:43, and I'm walking between Harbor East and Pet Hill.
Nah, you're good, man. You sound great, dude. Hey,
all right, excellent.
Before we get, I do want to talk to you about the Ravens, but let's talk about, because I know that early on in the season, you were unhappy. You were like, hey, this is not. But now that you guys have had the data, it feels like things are chugging along for Bet Yard AI.
Oh, definitely, yeah. We're 15 of 26 this weekend, spread and point totals combined. We got one game left, so we're right in that 60% range, which is still low for us overall. But I think that each week we progressively made more progress, and I think we're going to see a good uptick in our point total accuracy because we're making a little bit of a algorithmic change probably in the next couple of days. So we think that should increase a little bit more. Like I said before, getting data based on these teams this season.
Yeah.
There's always a couple of surprises. There's always philosophical changes. There's always injuries. There's always QB updates. It's pretty complex, actually. But what we're seeing behind the scenes bodes well for the rest of the season. We're actually really excited. So
can I ask a dumb guy question? Because,
Sure, no problem. There's no dumb questions, my brother.
I qualify for dumb guy questions. Like when Spencer Rattler starts a game, what does AI do with that? What does the algorithm do with it's someone you've never seen before? How do you get data about something like that?
Yeah, the best way that we can account for rookies is draft slotting position.
Okay.
There's historical data that correlates draft position with performance. We know it's not an exact science.
Sure.
Some guys like Tom Brady highly exceed, like Lamar Jackson highly exceed. And then you have guys that underperform, and I won't say any names. We know who those guys are. They're not in the league anymore. A lot of them are top 5 draft picks. So, it can be complicated, but then once you understand historical performance, it gives you a data point. Once you understand how the team in general has played, because if you think about it, the New Orleans Saints have a footprint already. And now what we're doing is we're pulling out the David Carr component to that footprint, and we're putting in Spencer Rattler, kind of an unknown. But there is some way to kind of within reason project how he potentially could play, but also recognizing there's a supporting cast and there's already previous data from the other 5 weeks before he was inserted.
That's cool. By the way, I gotta shout out that hoodie you're wearing is I gotta
clean,
get
huh?
Man, I gotta get one
Clean,
of those.
yeah.
That is awesome, bro.
Yeah, Naval Academy, baby. From the Under Armour store right here in
I'm gonna have to make that trip.
Yeah, I actually think I got this like a year ago. I don't even know if they have this in stock anymore, but
It's a number 25 team in all of college football right now, by the way, at Navy. I love that.
Hey,
Love that.
Go Navy.
Remind remind everybody about Bet Yard AI, where they sign up and how they can get they're getting a free week out of it.
Yeah, betyardai.com. You'll get a free week just when you sign up. And then we have one tier now. We have basically one price, and you'll get all our high confidence picks. You'll get all our baseline picks. And if we're not 50% or better, actually, let me say this. If we're not better than 50% on our high confidence picks, And usually there's somewhere between 7 and 11 of those. Remember, we do point total, spread, and money line. Money line doesn't count necessarily in kind of our bread and butter. Like money line, Vegas and us are somewhere around 70% accuracy on the money line. But where people like to bet is the point total and the spread, right? So we count our high confidence picks only fall in the point total and spread categories. And every week you'll get somewhere between 7 and 11. Obviously, we want to keep it an odd number to make sure that we're giving customers a chance and ourselves a chance to be over 50%. But like I said, get a free week and performance guarantee. If we don't perform, if we're not over 50%, you get the next week free. Now, just keep in mind, the free week you're not paying for. So if we're under 50% in your first week, you don't get another free week. Like you didn't pay for that week. Some people have they lose sight of that. I just want to be clear. I've had a couple people reach out like, well, hey, early on you guys weren't over 50%, but I'm like, hey, but you didn't pay for that week.
Correct.
That was the promo, right? So,
correct.
But I think every week since week 2, I think we've been over 50% actually.
Man,
I believe we have been, yeah. So
again, we're not allowed to say that like we're giving away money or something like that because that's not appropriate. That we can't say that, but it feels like it's something in that category of you're just missing out on money by not getting the information from BetYard AI. That's what it feels like, but I can't say that.
I got you. And I think that the point here is we're always trying to create value for the customer,
yes.
right? Like the goal here is to be transparent, to be as good as we can at what we do. And we should get rewarded when you get rewarded. If you don't get rewarded, we shouldn't get rewarded either. Like we believe in that. And so that's our motto. And I think the way that you framed it, Glenn, was really nice. You know what I mean? We don't need to talk about actual money. Yep. Let's just talk about kind of return on investment.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
We win, you win. You win, we win.
Femi Ayanbadejo with us here on GCR. Femi, I always like to try to highlight some of the things that you talked about during game day that were most impactful, and I think we start with the Roquan Smith conversation because, and I know this is your bread and butter, right, like human performance, but it really was eye-opening to me yesterday. I hadn't really thought about, like, wow, I guess Roquan maybe hasn't seemed as impactful as he had seen the last couple of years, and you really went deep with this.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact as we get older, I think especially as NFL players, we really need to dial in our nutrition and our recovery. And I actually think playing a little lighter, like I played a little lighter as I got older, it really helped me tremendously. And Roquan's a hell of a linebacker. You know what I mean? I'm just saying if I was his human performance coach, if I was his nutritionist, if I was sitting down with him, analyzing his play, my thought would be, okay, you're healthy, right? Like everything is good. Okay, yes, I'm healthy. All right, you're diagnosing everything, right? Yep, put into my film study, doing everything right. Okay, well, let's look at your nutrition. Let's look at your supplementation. Let's look at your recovery. Are we checking all those boxes? If everything is checking out, then let's look at the scale. Where are you body compositionally? Where are you weight-wise? You know what I mean? And I don't know if he's a little heavier or not. He looks like he is just based on the way he's moving. But this is all fixable stuff. Now, if there's other things going on behind the scenes that I don't know about,
right.
Obviously I can't talk about those things.
Right.
But if I'm looking at pure speed, reaction, coverage, I just feel like he's a little bit of a step off. And to me, it could just be like, hey, I need to just be a little leaner and lighter now. I'm at that point. I know he's like 27 or 28, right? So he's still really young. He's probably got another good 4 years in him, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only way that you extract all the value that you can bring to the field is by making sure you're as physically fit as possible, assuming that you're mentally fit and that you're still doing
right.
all your film study and all the other things, right? Like that, for me, there's no doubt in my mind that that's the approach to longevity and keeping peak performance.
So the other player that we unfortunately continue to talk about, look, everything is so good offensively right now. What else do we say other than this is insane how good this offense is? This is nuts. But on the defensive side of the ball, the Marcus Williams conversation continues to be loud. Have we reached a point where they just need to put someone else out, even if it's a Bo Braid? So, have we reached a point where Marcus Williams is a detriment to the football team and you have to put someone else out there for more snaps?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think we're there yet. I mean, do you think putting out Bo Braid's a rookie, isn't he?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's a little bit too risky for me. I think the continuity, the intelligence, the experience matters, and I think he still has that on his side. So I wouldn't. That's a knee-jerk reaction for me. And I actually thought I thought the defense as a whole. I mean, that's a very good offense
that
they went against yesterday.
Yep.
And I think in general they made the plays they needed to make. And there were some throws that he made. That touchdown that he threw, like, fourth down?
Yeah, the McLaurin.
Was it fourth and 6?
Yes.
Yeah. Jayden, he could only put it in one spot. And let's be real, the corner was draped all over. He had his arm in there.
No doubt. Brandon Stephens did everything that you could possibly do in that spot to try to make that play.
Brandon Stephens is a cloak. He's always all over. Now, does he locate the ball and make the play all the time? No, not necessarily.
Right.
But is he always in position? He's in more position than probably any corner that we have based on what I've seen with my eyes. Now, playing on the ball, I'd say Marlon's probably better. I'd say Nate is probably better at making a play on the ball. But we know that Brandon Stephens is a heck of a corner, and he's always kind of, plastered on his guy. He's always pretty much in good coverage.
Yep. No, and he did everything he could do in that. But that's an amazing play. I mean, that is, sometimes you truly have to tip your cap and say, if you do that, it's indefensible. And that was indefensible, the throw that Jayden Daniels made to Terry McLaurin in the end zone. There was nothing that could be done about that. I'll pose it this way. Aaron Schatz is like the godfather of football analytics, and he invented DVOA. And I was talking to him about this last week, and he said, hey, look, the numbers make it look like the Ravens are a really bad pass defense. They're not really bad. If you take away or if you consider the level of competition they faced, they're more like a middle-of-the-road pass defense. Is it ultimately, would that just be okay? And I'm not trying to say you don't want to ascend and you don't want to get better, because obviously you do. But if at the end of the day you have an unstoppable offense, maybe the best run defense in the league, and a middle-of-the-road pass defense, ultimately can you win a Super Bowl like that?
I mean, didn't they win a Super Bowl like that?
Yeah,
already?
in 2012, yeah.
The 2012 team, that defense wasn't great.
No.
They made the plays they needed to make when they needed to make them, and they played better toward the end of the season. But that offense carried that team for the most part. But that team, I believe that defense did make turnovers, and special teams was really, really
especially
good
in the playoffs, right? Yep.
Yes, exactly. I know that Niners game ended up becoming a bit of a shootout late because of the lights and all that situation. But I don't think this defense is actually a bad pass defense. And I think that everything that they've done wrong is fixable. And remember, the majority of the games, the Ravens have been up by a whole bunch of points. So teams are trying to throw on them, right? They're trying to catch up. So they're in pass mode. Now, would you like them to make a few more plays on the ball and not have some breakdowns on the back end? Absolutely. But the beauty is it's all fixable. So, you don't need to be last year's defense to win a Super Bowl, obviously, right? Especially with this offense and the multiplicity of this offense and the fact that everybody's gotten involved and is still getting involved. So if the offensive line, Lamar, Derrick Henry, keep doing those type things that they've been doing basically the last 4 weeks, they're going to be hard to beat. And I think this defense can get after you. That's the thing I love about this defense. They will get after you. They are physical, and they will stop the run. So by kind of just skill set and the nature of the way the Ravens play, teams are going to be passing on the Ravens a lot,
Correct.
And maybe it's a bend but don't break approach. And as long as they're communicating on the back end, they're going to be fine. I still think that this defense, when it's all said and done, is going to be a top 10 scoring defense. I believe that, because if you look at who they played, I mean, look at who Lamar's beat the last 4 weeks. Look at the teams that the Ravens have played since week 1. I mean, it's been a pretty impressive run against some pretty quality teams.
Yeah, there's
other than the Raiders, right?
There's the Raiders and everybody. Everybody else has an extraordinarily high-level quarterback. I mean, you're talking about the rest of the 5 quarterbacks besides Gardner Minshew that you faced are Mahomes, Prescott, Allen, Burrow, Jayden Daniels. Like, it's a hell of a group, man.
Yeah, no, I think that it's good to have something to work on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's good to hear negativity. I think we feed off that. I think we always have. So let people keep talking. Let people keep talking about everybody else. People keep saying this defense isn't good enough. Zach Orr is young and he's figuring it out. I think they're solid. I think they have everything that they need in that room. The other thing that I think we need to keep in mind, oh man, I had a thought. It was something about the defense, but it's escaping me right now. Maybe it'll come back to me. But I had it for a moment, but lost it temporarily.
You're good. You're good. We these things happen. Hey, did I see you're making a public appearance tonight? Are you headed over to the Purple Evening?
Yeah, I'm going to be there. Yeah, I'll be at the stadium. I think around 5:30 or 6. I'll be there till 8.
This is an event that just seems like it's continued to get bigger and bigger. And there's a lot of women in my life that truly love this event. Is this one? Because I know you that you're not always. This isn't always your cup of tea. But like, is there something cooler about this one and seeing the particularly female fandom of the Baltimore Ravens?
No, I mean, anytime I can get out and kind of be part of a Ravens production, I think it's an honor and a privilege. So I do enjoy these kinds of things. And I do quite a bit of appearances for the Ravens. You know, Kyle does, Kyle Richardson, I do, Mike McCrary does, Jamal and Jermaine Lewis do it. Obviously, Ray does it. Guys that live in the area do quite a bit of things. I probably do, you know, during the season, I probably do 1 or 2 events a month for the Ravens, and this happens to be one of the ones that I do. So I love getting out and seeing people. Obviously, I'm picky and choosy about who I do it with and when I do it. But I love putting my ring on, and you know, sometimes and very often, you know, I'm the first Super Bowl champ somebody's met, and my ring is the first Super Bowl ring they've ever seen.
Cool.
You know, I think that's an honor to introduce that to people and get to talk to them about that experience and those stories and what it means to be a Super Bowl champ in this city.
Cool, that's tonight down at the stadium for the female fans of the Baltimore Ravens. It's a very cool event. Of course, BetYardAI.com, and make sure you get signed up and take advantage of the role that BetYard AI is on right now. And we will talk to you next Monday night for the next Project Game Day. Femi, love you, brother. Always appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on.
Good to see you, brother. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Femi Ayanbadejo, Super Bowl champion. Appreciate him taking the time for us. All right, all of a sudden the 11 a.m. hour just got busier, so we got a lot more to do on the program today. Today's show also brought to you by the print issue of Press Box. These are the last couple of days before it's gone. If you haven't picked up the Kyle Hamilton issue of Press Box, you better go today, because by, I want to say Wednesday, it ain't there no more. And we'll make way for the new print issue of Press Box with Derek Queen and Julian Reese on the cover, celebrating the Baltimore-built duo reuniting in College Park with the Terps. So go get this one today, read it at PressBoxOnline.com, and then get ready for this week, a new print issue of Press Box, which will hit newsstands. Well, I saw this man write a little bit about the Baltimore Ravens, and I said, oh, that's a great excuse for me to talk to one of my favorite people, so let's call him. And he makes an argument that a Baltimore Ravens should be MVP, but not Lamar Jackson. Joining us now, he is, of course, Clark Judge, Talk of Fame 2, and he is with us here on GCR. Clark, it's Glenn. Always great to catch up with you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Hey, Glenn. Good to talk to you.
This is fascinating to me, Clark, because I think you and I have actually had a conversation about this topic broadly before, which is I despise the fact that the MVP award has become it's only for quarterbacks. We can only talk about the quarterbacks. I hate that. Like, I think we've seen, again, in the last couple of weeks, the difference that having an outstanding wide receiver has made for Josh Allen in particular, right? Like, I think there's evidence of some of these players are just that valuable. It's interesting because I think I agree with your premise, but disagree ultimately with like who it would be. But your argument about Derrick Henry as being MVP is really fascinating for those reasons. Why do you think he's worthy of MVP consideration?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. One is I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is not. He certainly is, and he's won it a couple of times before. But the reason is because I think he's given you an element that was really missing there, and that's a big-time running back who now takes the pressure off of the quarterback. The quarterback was carrying the running game. Now he's not. It's Derrick Henry, and so who are you gonna take? And Derrick Henry was right yesterday when he said, "Kind of pick your poison." Derrick Henry. It's going to be Lamar Jackson running. It's going to be Lamar Jackson throwing. The thing that makes it difficult for either of them, but particularly Derrick Henry, well, just for Derrick Henry, since we're speaking about him, is you look at the history of that award. You really don't win it unless you have an exceptional history-making season. Well, right now, he's having a history-making season. The last guy who won that award, who wasn't a quarterback, of course, was Adrian Peterson in 2012. But he ran for over 2,000 yards, and he got the Vikings into the playoffs. So that made it extraordinary. But you have to do something along those lines. LT in 2006, all the touchdowns. Sean Alexander in 2005, all the touchdowns. So you have to look at that particular issue. But then there's another, which is how can you be the most valuable player in the league if you're not the most valuable player on your own team? And that's going to be the issue that's going to ultimately probably impede him from either qualifying for the award or getting it, because people will make the arguments you are. Lamar Jackson. Okay. I mean, I used to say that with, Peyton Manning when they were talking about Peyton Manning or Edgerrin James. They say, well, how can we talk about most valuable player when we have two from the same team up for the award, and that could be an issue here.
Well, and by the way, it could be what prevents either one of them, right? Like it could ultimately be.
No, that's true. No, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. But it didn't prevent Peyton.
Sure, right. And typically everybody does default to the quarterback, as we've seen. Like, that is part of the conversation here. No, I brought this up last week because with all due respect to the season that Sam Darnold is having, which I think is incredible, I also think it's absurd that we've changed the wording of the Comeback Player of the Year award. Like humans aren't capable of measuring things against each other. I don't get that. But, like, with all due respect to the season that Sam Darnold's having, I watched that game against the Jets, and I said – the Jets on every play are obsessed with one guy. It's Justin Jefferson, right? Like, they are to the point where if they have to foul him on every play, they will foul him on every play. And I'm not saying that Justin Jefferson should be the MVP of the league because I think there's a bigger story about that offensive line in Minnesota is insane. The defense is doing things that I didn't think were possible in the NFL in 2024. But it felt back to me like, why can't we talk about how valuable Justin Jefferson is with respect to Sam Darnold, but isn't the story about Minnesota really more about the better player, and Justin Jefferson is definitively, to me, the better player of those two guys?
Yeah, I would say not necessarily, because to me, then he's the most outstanding player, make him the offensive player of the year, and that's my issue with that award, because most valuable player isn't the offensive player of the year. We have a separate award for that, so make him the offensive player of the year. To me, most valuable should be exactly what it means. How valuable or invaluable is he to that team? Sam Darnold took over a team that wasn't going to go anywhere, and he touches the ball every snap. Justin Jefferson doesn't. And Justin Jefferson is a tremendous player, okay? A great receiver, maybe the best out there. Make him the offensive player of the year. But I think what you're looking at with Sam Darnold, and he's not going to win the award, but I'm saying, is he more valuable to them than Justin Jefferson? I don't know. I mean, Justin Jefferson had a great year last year, the year before. They're not doing those years what they're doing right now. Sam Darnold is going to win the Offensive Player of the Year award. But for that team, he's serving a purpose that apparently nobody else really – Kirk Cousins, yeah, he got him in the playoffs, but they really didn't do anything. So I look at that as it's sort of the key to the whole thing. It's the value of that player. Look at Jayden Daniels. I mean, honestly, Jayden Daniels is a legitimate MVP to me candidate. Because not because he's a quarterback. He's changed that team. They all have great players, but now, I mean, Terry McLaurin's a great player, but he's made him much better and much more valuable. And people respond to guys like that. And I think what you see sometimes when we talk about, defenses being much better, and they're responding to people around them. That's why I said before, years ago, Tom Brady could win it every year. He should have won it every year or been in the top 2 or 3 because they didn't have necessarily great players around him. He made them better because he elevated their play. They wanted to play harder, better. They became a great team because of a great player. Same thing with Peyton Manning. Now, Peyton Manning did have great players around him, but not, with Brady, it wasn't quite the same. He didn't have Randy Moss for, 3 years? Yeah, they didn't win a Super Bowl.
And Rob Gronkowski was obviously really good. But, yes, you're right. Like, there were years that they won, with lesser wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, tell me the great running back he had. He didn't have a great running back, but Brady had something that no others at that time did. He had something with him that you can't measure. And honestly, I mean, I was out in San Francisco when they worked him out, and I've talked to Mary Ucci countless times about Brady because I covered that team at that time. And he said, if we had only been able to measure what was inside him, we were putting a clock on him. We were watching certain drills, but we didn't know what was inside of him. That's the thing you can't measure. And what I think is with most valuable players is what they contribute to that particular team.
He is Clark Judge. We're going to link up his story about Derrick Henry as an MVP candidate from Talk of Fame 2 on our Twitter account, @GlennClarkRadio, for you to check it out there. Clark, I think the story of what's happening in Baltimore, the part of the reason why it's difficult for me to embrace Derrick Henry as MVP is because, like, Lamar Jackson has just been otherworldly. Like, as good, he's a 2-time MVP that I still think is playing better football now. Like,
don't you think Derrick Henry's had an impact on that? Don't you think he's had an impact?
I agree with that. And I think that's the story of the Ravens offense is they've gone from Lamar Jackson has to be Superman, which in fairness, like, he still had to be against Cincinnati to win that game, but he can be Superman. He also can he threw for over 300 yards yesterday, and you almost don't even notice it. Like, it was just so pedestrian almost, despite the fact that he had a massive game, because the offense as a whole has become utterly indefensible. Like, what in the world do you do as an opposing defensive coordinator when you look at what it is that backfield is bringing to the table?
Well, ask Steve Spagnuolo. He seems to figure it out. They beat them every time they play them.
They got one. The Ravens did get one again.
What are they, 1-5 or 1-4 or something like that against them? That's the game last year in the playoffs of the championship game.
Well, they voluntarily stopped running the football. I'll never
running the ball against a team that couldn't stop the run.
My life, and for no reason at all. Not because of game circumstance, not because of anything. They just said, we don't feel like running the football today.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Oh, my God. But, it's funny. I was just thinking, you mentioned Josh Allen earlier. I mean, honestly, he probably is not going to win the award. He's talked about a long time about being in that race for every year. Sometimes he's one of the leaders. One time he's not. But with Josh Allen, I look at him and say, there's a guy who absolutely belongs in the conversation. Absolutely. I don't care about stats. He's got to carry that team. They don't have a running back. They don't have great receivers. He's got to run. He's got to pass. He's got to do everything. He's got to carry that team. And ultimately, it ends up getting him hurt every year. He's an extraordinary player. If you watch him, he's an extraordinary player who's had to carry that team. And they should have been in the Super Bowl that one year when, 13 seconds, they forgot, I guess we got to extend Patrick Mahomes. But I think when you look at Lamar Jackson, no question. I mean, there's no question he's having a great season. He's a great player. I sort of have to laugh at when people say we've never seen this before. Yeah, well, we have seen things like this before. But he's a great player. But he's better now because of the addition of a back that people go, uh-oh. Mm-hmm. I mean, who do we on that 4th and 1 yesterday? Yeah. Look at who people were covering. They were covering Derrick Henry.
Yeah, they're sold out.
And they let Lamar Jackson get around the end. So the thing is with him, he changes the way ball clubs have to defend you. Look at Tennessee, how successful they were when he was there. And then that was with Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback. Tannehill leaves and Henry leaves. Look at Tennessee now. They're nothing. Yep. Who are you going to defend? You don't have to defend anybody.
So I guess I'll ask it this way: Can the Ravens win the Super Bowl? You bring up what happened. The Ravens did lose to the Chiefs in Week 1. But I do think that there's acknowledgement of they lost by a toe first, right? Like the notion they did everything they should have done except for Isaiah Likely couldn't get his toe to stay in bounds at the end of the game.
Right.
With the other side being they also had an offensive line that was clearly struggling, and we saw that over the course of the next couple of weeks. If this is what they're going to be doing moving forward, is this finally the team that can get past the Chiefs and can get over the hump in the playoffs if they continue to keep Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson healthy and chugging along the way that they are right now?
Yeah, sure they can. Sure they can, and they should. But I'm a history major, and I say they should and they can, but they won't. Why? Because they don't. They find a way to not get it done. And I realized in that season opening game, that was just pure chance. But the fact of the matter is you have to get over that. You have to do it. And that's the way, when I look at Aaron Rodgers when he was in conference championship games, I don't trust him. And that's the difference between a guy like him and a guy like Tom Brady. And we mentioned Brady or others, or they're all the Montana when I covered the 49ers. They know how to win those big games, and they get them done. Mahomes knows how to win big games because he's been there every year. And they know in the back of their heads, Baltimore, we beat them every time. We beat Baltimore every time. Same thing with when they get Buffalo in that meaningful game. We can beat these guys. We'll see. I mean, right now it looks great. But the thing is, I learned a long time ago, someone said to me, don't even pay attention until maybe late November, December, because it's not necessarily the best teams that get there. Mm-hmm. It's the teams that are either the hottest or the most healthy. And he was right about that because injuries happen. You saw it happen yesterday with Detroit. That's a huge, huge setback for the Lions. When you have something like that, it's a big deal. So we'll see. Right now, the Ravens are playing really well. But I got to be honest with you, I thought Washington looked pretty good yesterday. Now, Washington's not in their class, but they got a young quarterback. And Baltimore, we'll see. I mean, the thing that concerns me a little bit about Baltimore and has nothing to do with the offense, early a couple of those games, the collapses in the fourth quarter of the secondary. That was the thing that sort of
the pass defense concerns me. There's no question about it. And again, I do think that's look, maybe sometimes the best defense is Derrick Henry, right? Like just saying.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, that's how you keep Mahomes. You keep Mahomes off the field. But I tell you, if you can't get to the quarterback or you have a secondary that's suspect, the Chiefs have found a way to beat you. So, but I think that AFC is so interesting to me now because I said before the season I didn't think Kansas City would win this year. I thought Houston would because I love what was going down there. Now that they got Mixon and they're getting things going, we'll see what happens. But you got Baltimore, you got Kansas City. And you've got Houston. Those are three legitimate teams. Cincinnati, I thought was going to be there. Boy, I don't see it now. I just don't see it. And I know they won last night.
I can't write them off. I can't write them off. I can't do it. I can't. Joe Burrow's too good. I can't do it.
Yeah, he's really good. But there's another guy. He can't carry that team.
I get it.
He got treated like a pinata again last night. They can't protect him. And the defense has been abysmal. They were good last night. It was Daniel Jones of the Giants.
Yeah, you better be.
Right. You know that'll be. But if they come back to me, then you got four really good teams. I don't see it happening. I thought the Chargers might be an outside shot. You just don't have enough. But Harbaugh will eventually get them in the mix at some point.
All right, so you want to remind everybody about Talk of Fame 2?
Yeah, sure. It's talkoffame2.com. It's basically a Hall of Fame-centric site. I do it with John Turney, who's an historian. He's going to be a Hall of Fame voter at some point this year. But we deal with all things past, present, and future. And obviously we deal with present because we're talking about Derrick Henry. But oftentimes it's with historical figures. And I'm a Hall of Fame voter, and we do have Hall of Fame subjects. So anytime the Ravens are involved, we'll be right in, Bob.
Very interested, obviously, over the next couple of months of how things look for Terrell Suggs going in.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd be shocked if, well, first of all, I think he'll be a semifinalist. I'd be shocked if he's not a finalist in that we're going to get him in the top 15.
Yep.
And that'll be interesting then because pass rushers we love. He was a great one.
He is, of course, Clark Judge. And you can also follow Clark on Twitter at ClarkJudgeTOF. Brother, always appreciate you. Thank you for spending the time with us this morning. Let's talk again real soon, all right?
You bet. Thanks very much. Thanks for calling.
Clark Judge with us here on GCR. We come back in. Apparently, Qadry Ismail is going to join us. Everybody's hopping on this morning. The Ravens, they've won 4 straight. Why wouldn't everybody be fired up? We'll do that next. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Experience the thrill of the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, coming October 17th to the 20th. See the world's best equestrians compete in the sport of eventing, the ultimate test of horse and rider. Enjoy a weekend festival featuring locally sourced food at the Fresh Food Fest, a beer, wine, and spirits showcase, shopping, and fun for all ages. Check out the Maryland Corgi Cup, interactive kids corner, and more. It's the place to be in October. Visit Maryland5star.us for tickets.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens star safety Kyle Hamilton, detailing his path from growing up the son of a basketball player to choosing football, being overlooked in the draft, and turning into a defensive unicorn as a playmaking Swiss Army knife in the NFL. Also inside, meet college football players from all of the area's D1 programs and some of the area's college soccer standouts as well. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
Need a trophy or award that's as unique as the achievement? Look no further than Crown Trophy. With locations in Owings Mills and Gaithersburg, they specialize in custom trophies, plaques, and medals for any occasion. From sports and academic awards to employee recognition and corporate gifts, visit crowntrophy.com today and let them help you create a lasting memory for your school, team, or business. Crown Trophy is a proud supporter of the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association. crowntrophy.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday edition of the program. We will catch up with our buddy Jeremy Conn before we get out of here today, and we need your pats on the ass. You would think that today there'd be a robust response after a big win, but it's not been like that.
Nobody wants to get their hands on asses today?
I don't know why that would be. Today seems like a great day to get all up in that ass. I don't know. It's a weird day, but yeah. Who you want to give some pats on the ass to? As always, you got to pick 5 Ravens. 2 must be offensive players. 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, a defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5 to 1. Get me your list at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, and everyone who responds is immediately eligible to win a $50 gift card to Costas Inn. So get in already at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter with your pats on the ass list. Joining us now, another Super Bowl champion, former Ravens wide receiver. He is our friend, Mr. Qadry Ismail, and he's with us on GCR. You see him, of course, on WJZ. Qadry, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I am doing well. 4 weeks of this.
Life is good, right? Like, remember the panic after week 2? Remember how worried everyone was? How silly was that? It's like it never even happened.
I tell you what, I'm glad it happened, because when you face adversity like you did in the AFC Championship game, and then you get these expectations from training camp and everyone is jumping on your bandwagon, well, it takes a series of challenges like being 0-2 to then therefore recognize that you can't rest. You have to stay the course. And this is a league when it's week to week, when they say things like it's a marathon, not a sprint, and all the other cliches, that jazz is factual and real.
Well, Qadry, so let me ask it this way. To you, what has been most significantly different from those first 2 weeks of the season to where the Ravens are now?
So John talked about it a few times as far as there's no consistency within the team, and whether it's been the offensive line, whether it's been the play calling, whether it's been play calling relaying the information to one another, from a defensive standpoint, secondary standpoint, killer mentality as far as finishing off games. I think that's what we saw when we saw the Raiders and we saw the Kansas City Chiefs. And so now I think what we're seeing is that they realize they're going to hang their hat on Derrick Henry. They're going to then utilize all the other, as Lamar would say, pick your poison. They're going to utilize other guys. I think the trust that Lamar has more and more with with Isaiah and with Bates really has taken taken pressure off of him having to force feed it to Mark Andrews. And so all that came about because you had Derrick Henry against the Buffalo Bills go 87 to the hizzy. Once he went to the hizzy, everything else settled into place, and I think that was the big catalyst and turning point.
I think it's a very fair point. Combined with the improved play of it does genuinely seem like the offensive line has been better, right? Like, to me, Daniel Faalele is the one that stands out the most. Like, it did not look right, but he seems to have adjusted and settled in, and he looks like a football player, and you can understand now what it is that the Ravens saw from him and why they gave him the job to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think that's part credit to him, part credit to his coach, part credit to the staff of trying to fight through and see the bigger picture and not just settle for, well, you suck. All right, get somebody else in. Because that's basically what was going on with the outside noise. I mean, even myself, like, there were times where I was like, man, I don't know. I don't think he should be in there. Maybe he is Pat McCurry. But I think what we're seeing is even Roger Rosengarten, who, he struggled a little bit yesterday too. And there were some Faalele struggles against the Bengals. But those are growing pains. And there's steep growing pains to learn from. But I think it also helps that, you are seeing few and far between as far as like deadly growing pains that is hurting the team to the point where you're losing games.
Qadry Ismail is with us here on GCR. Qadry, been a lot of discussion over the last couple of weeks about maybe the Ravens could be in on Davante Adams. There's a lot of people whose opinion is your offense is great. Why rock the boat? And, there are other people that say, what do you mean rock the boat? You got to, if there's a great football player, you bring in a great football player. I don't think the Ravens need Davante Adams, but where are you with that conversation and whether it's worth them to try to, maybe get over the top and beat the Chiefs, even consider adding whether it's Adams or Amari Cooper or someone else who might be out there at the deadline?
So I do understand, the Amari Coopers and the Davante Adams. I guess it's such a delicate thing. In other words, I am all for getting next level players. Yannick Ngakoue was a next level player, kind of lost his luster, but then at the same time, the Ravens are like, hey man, we need somebody. Boom, he comes in there. Obviously, we saw what he did last week. Applied some pressure, but this week, not only did he apply pressure, but he was also able to go ahead and finish and get Jayden Daniels for a sack, and that was really an important turning point in the drive and halted the Commanders' momentum. With the two other receivers, there's a lot of nuance that goes into it. It's not like, you can just cowboy up and be your own solo act out on the edge and get to the quarterback. It's chemistry within the group that I think this group, Bateman, likely Aguilar, Flowers, Andrews, Kolar, they all bring something to the table, and I think they all know each other's roles and everything, and it just flows. And if they were playing bad, then sure, knock yourself out, get another guy like Cooper or I don't even know if we really could get Cooper because I think just because him being in the division. But anyway,
right, that's tough. Yes.
Right, but like Adams, I think there would have been some kind of something. But I think even yesterday just goes to prove to you that this team is it's just growing, week to week and growing and getting better.
I feel like the guy that we're not talking about because he's not putting up everybody's talking about Zay Flowers. He's been amazing. There's no debate about that. But Qadry, Rashad Bateman has been maligned in this city for not being, a rock star. And I've never fully understood because he's not been, a guy that's dropped the football. He's not been Brashad Perryman. He's not been someone. He's been open a lot, and the ball just hasn't come his way. And I think that we show some of our own insecurities, like people have an issue with someone who would paint their nails. Like I think that there's some real weirdo behavior that exists the way that we talk about Rashad Bateman. I've always thought Rashad Bateman was more a part of the solution than he was a part of the problem. And while it's not showing up in explosive numbers, I think we have seen consistently through this year that there has been a developing connection between he and Lamar Jackson, and he's proven to be a really valuable piece of this offense.
Here's the thing. Lamar Jackson's offense is a very much strong side dominant offense, whereas you will see other teams, other high-level functioning quarterbacks that have played and that were on Lamar Jackson's level, that they would prioritize more of a X-receiver backside, if we get one-on-one type of look, like McLaurin when he scored the am I pronouncing his name
McLaurin,
correctly?
yep.
Terry McLaurin?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, when Terry McLaurin caught the touchdown from Jayden Daniels off of Brandon Stevens, like the formation was a dominant front side formation. He was the backside X receiver. And so there's a trust factor in getting the ball out to Terry to come up with the ball, which he did. And it was, I mean, that was an amazing throw.
Incredible.
And an amazing catch. And you see that throughout the league. And so I think it's just the way the offense is. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's not anything. It's a front side, tight end, Z receiver style of dominant offense. I mean, that's just what it is. And that's okay. Like it doesn't need to be looked at as bad, and you just recognize what it is, and that's okay.
But when they've gone to him this year, he has come up with a lot of big catches, man. Like he's made.
But see, here, hold on. I'm gonna cut you off here because you're preaching to the choir now.
Yeah.
No. I'm saying you're preaching to the choir in that I've been like, yo, Bateman is about to do this thing.
Yeah.
But then we have the people over on X that want to like, oh, Rashad can't do that. And I'm like, boy, y'all need to take off y'all regular fandom glasses and put on some more expertise type understanding of what the Ravens offense really is, and recognize that Rashad Bateman is a baller and he can play. And when his number gets called, he's going to produce. And yeah, so you're preaching to the choir. Like I've been like, yo, this dude's been showing up since doggone training camp. And I've seen every doggone training camp practice. Because of that, I had the confidence to say what I said as far as Rashad Bateman.
He's been phenomenal, man. He's been really, really good. Qadry, on the flip side of the ball, like, how do we talk about the pass defense? Because I think we all acknowledge it's not as good as you would like it to be, but I also don't know that I don't think it's bad. I think there are some numbers that make it seem like it's bad, but I think they faced a lot of really good quarterbacks, a lot of really good wide receivers this year. I don't know that it's the type of thing that you would say prevents them from being able to win a Super Bowl. I just think we can't pretend like it isn't an issue. How do we say all of that the correct way?
It's tough because, yes, there were times where you're like, oh, man, if you would have got to, Jayden, or if you would have got to, Joe, the secondary would have been able to hold up, and we would have been, looking at the secondary do its thing and pass, breakup, interception, something. But then you also look at it as like, wow, well, Kyle Van Noy, he's doing his thing. Travis Jones doing his thing. Justin Madubuike Nnamdi Madubuike is doing his thing. You got I think Adafe has been doing his thing, maybe not quite up to the level. I mean, that's kind of what everybody is saying about Rashad Bateman, but I think, it's a little bit different in that, yes, he's a first rounder as well, and that's about it. I think the fact that, for Adafe, I think what people are expecting is just like more production. But I think, from the football aspect of things, there are some strong points that he's been showing and doing and pressuring. It just might not show up necessarily on the pure, just out and out sack numbers. But I think it's not to be concerned with in a sense of like panic button, but it also is, there is some concern. Yeah. I'll just say it there is some concern. You don't want to just rest on your laurels.
You brought up something because I do think, and like in watching film, it does look like for the most part, Marlon and Brandon Stevens are there, and Nate Wiggins in moments, right? But that's what you expect from a rookie, like in moment. But I feel like the concern has been Marcus Williams in particular, that he doesn't seem to be where he needs to be, kind of frequently. What do you make of what's going on with Marcus Williams? I think the strangest part is a year ago we saw some issues with Marcus Williams that they were related to tackling, and you're like, well, hey, he's playing with one arm, right? But this year it seems like you've got a healthy Marcus Williams that just, I don't know. And again, this might be the dumb guy thing. It seems like he's confused at times, or he's just not following the ball or being in the spot where a corner is expecting him to be, or like on the first touchdown yesterday, recognizing that there is a receiver behind him and he's only covering space, not a man who's standing wide open in the end zone.
Yeah, I get all that. And man, I'm just as perplexed as everyone else.
Yeah.
Film don't lie. Our game day eyeballs don't lie. Whether it be, like you said, the pectoral injury and him toughing it out to be out there. But it was interesting because it's like, man, even when he was out there, he was kind of a liability at times, the way he couldn't necessarily tackle to protect himself. Then when you look at it this year, yes, there have been plays where you're like, dang it, bro, I thought you were a good ball hawking kind of a safety. So I'm not sure what the right answer is, and I guess I just don't know enough of things that are happening within the framework of the defense and what they're asking him to do or not do to really make an educated comment on it.
I'm not, and I brought this, I don't think I'm at a place where you say, well, it's such a detriment to the team that you just have to put anyone else out there. I don't think I could comfortably say that, but boy, I don't know. Man. You got to get it solved. These are the nice things to be able to talk about when the team's 4-2. They've won 4 straight games. Life is good. Let's remind everybody. Life is good.
No, yeah, you remind everybody, but then at the same time, we're 4-2 is not the end goal. Being a good regular season team is not the end goal. I think that's the thing. It's not, even Lamar, what I love about it, he's like, yeah, so what? Okay, we won. Great. We're not done yet. Done is sticking your nose knee deep in the playbook and focusing in on every detail and holding each other accountable and not just making the playoffs and being content. So to Marcus Williams, it's like, yeah, we're kind of concerned, not because everything is great and we won. No, because we want to see the bigger picture. And we're going to need you to make an interception. We're going to need you to have a pass breakup because they're going to be a damn good football team that we're going to face in the playoffs. And that quarterback, that tight end, that receiver, that back out of the backfield, they're going to be damn good, and you better be damn good too. That's why I think you and I are having this conversation about him and about the Ravens rush. It's not that we don't think that they're a good rush team. We do think that.
Right.
It's just that, man, when you get into the playoffs, you got to bring the pressure.
No question. No question about it. And that has been the difference, I think, a couple of times for this team in the postseason. And so it's got to continue. And, baby, again, as much as we've talked about Devontae Adams, as much as we talked about that would continue to be the area we default back to say, you know what, if you're going to make a trade, go find someone. I don't know who that is, unfortunately, off the top of my head, because there just aren't that many of them that are game changers and game wreckers. And when you have them, you tend to hold on to those guys. That's the way that the league seems to operate. All right, brother, you want to remind everybody about missile training?
Yeah, man. Missile training is easy peasy to understand. It's all about human movement and sports performance training. At the same time, it doesn't matter the age, 6 all the way up to 85 of my clientele. Doesn't matter the sport. At the same time, you go to missiletraining.com. Go to missiletraining.com. Check it out. Interact with me. Love to have a consultation and work with you.
Love you, brother. Always appreciate you. Let's talk again real soon. Thanks for hopping on with me this morning, man.
Appreciate you having me.
That's Qadry Ismail with us here on GCR. You want to go ahead and call Jeremy? You want to just keep rolling along? It's the type of morning that we're having. Just continuing to roll along. By the way, as expected yesterday, boatload of Commanders fans. There are a couple of weirdos. I did my Sermon on the Mount last week. Followed it up on Twitter. The mouth breathers are, it's embarrassing. It's not the way it was supposed to be. And again, with any modicum of thought, you can understand exactly what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday is very simple. What happened is that there was a market very close by that had an extraordinary amount of interest because they've literally never had a team that was worth spending money on. It's like a baseball team making the playoffs for the first time in a decade. It's going to drive more significant interest. Any amount of thinking can answer the question for you. But if you're not willing to think, if you just want it to be mouth-breathing nonsense, oh, this is embarrassing. You should be ashamed of yourself. If you just want to do that, you're going to do that. And I get it. For a lot of us, that's just what we want to do. Either, and in some extent, we're just dumb. And I don't try to say that to be mean, but I have to be. I'm too old to continue to play this game. Some of you are just dumb people. I love you. I don't think you listen to this show. I don't think it's for you. But some of you are just dumb people. Others of you aren't dumb. You just like either groupthink or saying things that get attention on the internet. And we have become a culture of weirdos. The same people that for some reason think it's an issue that Rashad Bateman paints his fingernails to honor people in his family and decide, I don't like Rashad Bateman. By the way, how's Caleb Williams looking? He paints his fingernails.
Cupcake schedule. Well, yeah.
Mouth breathers. And I get it. Their votes count the same as yours and ours. Like, that's the reality.
Well, we live in Maryland.
Well, that's true. Our votes don't count. That's a good point. Take it. Well, they live in Maryland, too. The ones that I think I do.
I mean,
if they live in Pennsylvania, their votes are the only ones that count. It's the only place. We all got together and decided that we would come up with this neat system where Pennsylvania got to pick the president of the country. It's hell of an idea. God. But that's the reality. Like, the mouth breathers are people, too. But we have to call them out for their mouth breathing. Yesterday, any amount of thought, just any thought at all, would explain to you why there were a large number of Commanders fans at the game. Any amount of it. Or you could mouth breathe. Hey, it's embarrassing. God. Let's now turn to a man who's, unfortunately, he lives in Maryland too, so his vote also doesn't count. That's just the way that it goes. He's Jeremy Conn. Big Bad Morning Show, ConcreteLocks.com. Tell me about how embarrassing it was. Tell me about how it's a pox on Ravens fans that they sold their tickets for astronomical numbers to a fan base that desperately wanted to spend money on something that felt real yesterday.
Look, I go back to this. Like, I'm not one of those fans that boos at a stadium, but you pay your money, you're allowed to. You buy your tickets, you can sell them. I mean, preferably you'd like to see it go to another fan of the team, but, you know, I've heard people that have sold their Ravens Steelers tickets and it's pretty much paid for their season.
That's
so I get to go to 7 games plus, and I just give up this one game, and it just makes sense sometimes, man.
The tickets aren't free. Like, this is the other part that drives me insane. Like, this drives me so bat-ass. When you think that there's an obligation, this is economics 101 type of stuff, dude. Like, I know there aren't, what is it, 75? There aren't 75,000 people that just have the amount of disposable income that they don't have to think about how much they're paying for these tickets. That's not real. You know that. I know that. Everybody with a brain knows that. So every single one of these people that buys tickets, some of them say, I'll sacrifice somewhere else. If that means that I don't go on vacation this year, I won't go on vacation because I care so deeply about the romantic feelings of going to football games that I will make that my priority. And that's their choice. But for the overwhelming majority of them, they have to make economic decisions. They have to consider whether or not they're going to be able to go on a vacation or go to a concert, and if they can sell their tickets for certain games in order to be able to do that, that just makes sense. Like, it's so brainless the way we discuss this topic.
You know, it's one of those things, too. Like, I heard you bring up Bateman and his fingernails. I haven't understood that, like, somebody doing something that's not hurting you, that's not hurting anyone else.
And has no impact on literally anything. Anything at all.
Look, if I saw a guy walking down the street in a tutu, I go, well, that's interesting.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, what an idiot. I can't. But if that's what you want to do it. It doesn't affect me.
Or imagine your response being, there's no way that guy could be a good plumber because he's wearing a tutu today. Like, what the hell do these things have to do with each other? The way that people genuinely try to suggest that painting fingernails has something to do with football is badass. Like, it's.
But you know, the one thing they did get right is Pedro Strope's hat being a little crooked did make him pitch terrible.
That is the reason, actually. That is a good point. Dude, I feel like I'm losing it, man. Like, I can't do this much longer. Like, I can't deal with how much gaslighting we've accepted. Like, the nonsense that we just continue to throw out there, and no one. Why aren't we allowed to think? What has happened to us? Like, what are we as a society? Dude, I might be having a meltdown right now. I might be.
Well, because, I mean, some things are just so stupid. Like, I would get into it all the time on the morning show with Ed. And, look, everybody's opinionated, has their own things. This isn't even me taking a shot at Ed. I could take shots at him over some other stuff that would be more fun. But like, in all honesty, he goes, why don't you, like, he said, you always say you don't care. I said, no, I give you opinion when I have an opinion on something. If somebody, again, if you want to go to work every day in a freaking, a mascot costume or something, I think it's weird, but, like, I don't care. Do your thing if it makes you feel comfortable. There's just so many things in society that people get caught up on and let affect their day that have nothing to do with their day. I don't understand this.
It's unbelievable to me. All right. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Thanks. I got everything out I needed to get out.
Well, I'll see you next week.
Yeah, right. Like, you want to talk about the Ravens? They're good. Like, I don't know what to say.
Well, I mean, you could talk about the rest of the league here and, like, who is good.
Yeah, you know, I said this. I said this earlier today. I think that at the moment, 6 teams have separated themselves. There are 6 teams that we know definitively are good.
Overall or in the AFC?
Overall. I think in the entire NFL, there are 6 teams that I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt I know are good. Everyone else.
Them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to say Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston.
Yep, those 3.
I would go to the NFC, and what we know, I would say, it's kind of weird that I'm saying this. I think it's Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota.
Those are the 6.
So you might have the 49ers in there.
You've nailed the 6.
Okay.
Like, if the 49ers had a healthy Christian McCaffrey, 100% they would be in this conversation. But not knowing
something's wrong with their defense right now too.
You know, it's really funny because Femi posed this yesterday to us. He said, do the Ravens have the best skill position players? Like, if you took everything else away and only looked at skill positions, do the Ravens have the best team in the NFL? And my immediate thought was, well, if the 49ers get McCaffrey back, the 49ers have to be back in that conversation. But then I looked at their secondary, and I was like, wait, what happened there? Like, that's not the same group of players I remember it being. And I don't know if that's just me not paying attention or if they're just players that are hurt that I didn't realize. But you're right about that. And that's why I can't – Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, but not one that I think can carry a team. And so because of that, and I don't know, apparently we're having a hurricane or something at the moment because all of our phones.
Well, somebody's kid got kidnapped.
Yeah, that's awful. That's awful. Everybody's phone's going off at the same
by
time.
a hurricane, though. It was by a hurricane.
Right? That's terrible.
Gray Nissan Altima. Be on the lookout.
Please, if you see a gray Nissan
That's what I used
Altima.
to drive.
Uh-oh.
Did they find it?
Yeah. Anyway, the moral of the story being, I can't put the 49ers in that group right now. I just can't do it until I see, because I can't. And by the way, I still don't know. It's funny we're saying this, and somebody we had on earlier said, "Oh, it's Trey Wingo." I know Minnesota has to be in that group because their offensive line and their defense have been bonkers to start the season, right? But and I posed this to Aaron Schatz last week. Would you rather have Minnesota's defense and Sam Darnold, or the Ravens defense, which statistically from pass perspective, looks bad? And what they have offensively, he's like, dude, it's not even a competition. Like, there's not even an argument there for preferring to have what Minnesota has. Like, you would always the offense is far more predictable than defense is, and I just still don't know that Minnesota can keep doing this all season long.
Yeah, look, the one thing about them, though, is that they've only, trailed for 3 minutes, so they've been dominating whoever they played. And each time I think somebody's going to catch them, they don't. They beat the 49ers that we just talked about, which was kind of the surprise, I think, early in the season. But the more and more you look at this league, it's like, I don't know that we know a lot about it. And I'm not saying that, like, look, I handicap games. I'll have good weeks, I'll have bad weeks, and then I try to look at it. Like, this was a very public week where, like, all the big tickets and who everybody was betting on, all these road favorites ended up winning by astronomical numbers, and, some weird stuff happened. So I would just sit here and say that, like, looking at the league, because 3 weeks ago we thought Buffalo might be the best team in football, and now they're on the verge of losing 3 straight, and it's 3 straight road games. You know what I mean? Like, the league has been so weird that you can't really, outside of looking at Kansas City and Minnesota being undefeated and saying, I know they're good because they haven't lost. Like, I mean, you can make a case for a couple other teams as you did. I just think the rest of the league's just bad.
Who else would you buy into outside of that? Like, if I separated those 6 teams and said, you've got to pick a team that can make a run to the Super Bowl, give me, like you have to make 3 bets. Who would the 3 teams be outside of those 6 teams?
Oh, outside of those 6 teams. Okay. Oh, God, am I going to pick I'd probably pick the Jets. I can't believe I'm saying this. That would be one team. But that's me being a little bit more bullish on a team that I think I think they win tonight against Buffalo, and then I think it gives them a little bit of a lead in that division, as ugly as the division is right now.
Okay.
On the NFC side, I'd still think that I'd want to put my chips in the middle with the 49ers, just because there's a track record there. If they're healthy, we've all said it, and I think the NFC is very weak. The other team that I would like to, but oh God, this is tough, man.
I tell you,
because,
can I give you the one?
The other one I like is Atlanta.
Okay,
so,
all right, I'll listen to Atlanta.
Their defense is questionable right now.
Yeah, I cannot shake it. I know that there is no reason for me to believe in this team. Their offensive line stinks. Their defense stinks. But I cannot write off Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. I can't do it. Like, they
were so bad last night.
They were awful. They were, and it was the one night their defense finally looked good, but that was against Daniel Jones, right? Like,
did you hear the stat about him that he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass at home?
It's nuts.
In almost 2 years.
It's nuts, man. Like, it's insane. People still. By the way, somebody's paying money for that. Someone paid extraordinary money to go watch that last night.
The best part about the Daniel Jones thing is that they didn't give him the 5th-year option. And then he comes out and balls out. Then they have to pay him.
Yep.
And then he's like, I'm kidding. That wasn't me.
God, what a testament that is to, like, how terrifying the quarterback thing. I do wonder if at some point we will see, given Baker and Sam Darnold and Joe Flacco, right? Like, given what those guys are doing, will there be more teams that will choose to simply move on from their quarterbacks and attempt to experiment with a first-round pick that someone else gave up on and just say it's a better thing for us to do than to chase money with than to give boatloads of money to Derek Carr, is find someone else's Derek Carr, right? Like, find someone else's player that was good but, or that just didn't work. I just wonder if there will be a thought process along that. Look, if you know you've got a guy, if you've got Joe Burrow, if you've got Lamar Jackson, you pay that guy. But we've been in the NFL paying guys that aren't those guys. We've been paying anyone that's even competent. I just wonder if we get to a point where the competent quarterbacks stop getting paid, and let's see if we can't find someone else's Baker Mayfield.
Glenn, it really doesn't matter what we think. The most important thing is, what does Griffin think? Because that's what all the fans out there want to know. Who is good according to young Griff?
That's so
good in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Chiefs are good.
By the way, Femi put him on the spot during our post-game show yesterday. This is a straight shoot, Jeremy. Femi put him on the spot. Femi is like trying to coach Griffin. Like Femi is, I think he's like taking it upon himself. Like he's going to get the best out of Griffin, which is something that I haven't been able to do yet. So like I appreciate that Femi's doing that.
It's funny because like I have a special spot in my heart because I came up the same way a lot of these kids did.
Of course.
Like I didn't go to school for this. I cut my teeth. I fell into the job. Got hired because I would work for free and then eventually get paid. So like when I always look at
wait, he paid you?
Yeah. Eventually. Eventually. It was $8 an hour, so it was eventually. But I mean, it was an $8 an hour raise from all the work.
That's
I was
a
doing.
fact.
That being said, like you look at certain guys in this industry and you start to think, okay, do they have aspirations of being on the air? Where do they want to go? I think Griffin's talented. I'm not saying it because he's listening.
Yes.
I'd tell you if he wasn't listening.
I don't know if I believe you. I don't know if you're not. No, look. Everybody knows I love Griffin, and he's worked very hard. But Femi put him on the spot and said because Femi always wants everybody to give their top 5 teams at the end of the postgame show, and he put Griffin on the spot to go first, and Griffin left Minnesota out of his top 5.
They're on bye. They're on bye this week.
And I was just like, wait, what? Like, what just happened?
Defense isn't fun.
And he got the point. He's like, dude, I just forgot. I'm like,
it happens, Griffin. You're put on the spot.
This is your moment.
It's like when you send out all these picks and I get them all wrong. That means you just put me on the spot and I wasn't ready. Although I think I had a good week.
Yeah, I finally had a good week this week, and I was like, hell yeah, the tide has turned. I'm still in last place. I went 7-2 this week, and I'm still in last place.
Did I go 8-1 or 7-2?
Ken was the only one who went 8-1 this week. Ken had the high water mark. He went 8-1. You went 7-2.
I lost Thursday.
Yeah, I lost Thursday as well. You also lost. You had Nollins.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. They didn't win when Tampa Bay scored 47?
No, believe it or not. Spencer Rattler didn't end up leading them on a dramatic comeback in that one. So, yeah, you lost that one as well. What else is going on in your world? I don't even know what there is to talk about. I had I wanted to talk to you about hotel etiquette. Like, what?
Okay.
When you're at a hotel, I had an experience. I was in Indianapolis this weekend working. And on Saturday night, there was a Pink concert at the football stadium in Indianapolis. And I've never seen anything like I just, because I'm never, like, I don't go to the Taylor Swift show. I'm guessing that, like, downtown hotels, when you go to a Taylor Swift show, look the exact same. Unbelievable. Like, the crush of people. I got back. I went out for dinner after my work, and I came back at the exact same time the Pink show was ending. And what I saw in the lobby of the hotel was something I've never seen before in my entire life. And I wonder if, in that scenario, like, is it cool? Can you just take over and say, it's a party, it's all nothing but those Pink fans? Are you supposed to be respectful of the fact that, like, hey, there are people here that probably have nothing to do with it? I'm not going to be, I don't care, right? Like, I'm not the guy.
Yeah.
But I did wonder about that. I was watching this all unfold on Saturday.
I think that's the hard part, is when everybody else is at the party, but you're not, technically, and you're like, okay, be respectful to me. And again, I don't know if I was in said party, if I would end up being respectful to you if I was young and had a couple drinks in me.
Right.
So I think there's kind of a gray area. You did not go to the Pink concert?
No. By the way, this is not anything against Pink. If work had ended on Saturday, I was out there with USA Lacrosse doing their national team stuff. And if the games on Saturday had been in the afternoon and someone had said, hey, do you want to go to Pink? I would have gone. I love Pink. I think she's great, right? Like, I of that group of, like, pop stars, I don't know that there's somebody whose music I enjoy. I mean, if you put Beyonce in that group, I like Beyonce's music probably more than I like Pink's. But
it's also a matter of would you pay for a ticket to go to
and how much does it – this goes back to the economic question, right? Like, if I said, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I went and looked, and the only way to get in is to pay, like, $200 to sit in the upper deck, there's no chance in hell that I'm going to choose that. But if there was, like, a $40 upper deck ticket, I probably would do that. Or if there was, like, a $80 lower deck ticket, I'd probably say, yeah, that's a decent way to spend a Saturday night.
See, this is one of the reasons why I think your face should be on the $2 or $3 bill, because when Iraq lacrosse called and said, "Hey, we want you to come out and do some stuff," you said no.
Yeah, right.
I'm only for
Refused
U.S.
to.
lacrosse.
That's a fact.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not. I tell you who I'm not. I'm not Sergeant Slaughter. That's who I'm not. These pythons.
Vince McMahon thing, I forgot about that.
I will only fight for the USOA. That's the only way that it works.
He made a sergeant switch gears and defend Iron Sheik. It's like, what the hell's going on?
You got death threats. By the way, speaking of mouth breathers, they got death threats. They couldn't do an outdoor event outdoors because they were afraid he was going to be shot.
Yeah. Can I tell you one of my favorite things is when DX had the sunglasses on with the windshield wipers or the wipers on them.
God, the
when
best.
They were talking to Sergeant Slaughter because he spits every time he talks.
So good, man. So good. Did you watch the Vince McMahon thing on Netflix?
Yeah, I watched. I power watched it all in one day.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun because there's so many things that I forgot about, and it's right in my wheelhouse because I got out of wrestling. The NWO brought me back, and I even hung on with WCW for way too long when WWE started to take off even more. It's like, oh yeah, they got The Rock and Stone Cold, but I'm watching the Ghost of Scott Hall, and I think I think La Parka's coming out. Oh, he died? Oh, damn, La Parka's not around anymore. I was hanging on too long for that, but again, wrestling's not my cup of tea anymore.
No, and I get that. This was the issue that I had because I think they presented the documentary as it being about Vince McMahon, and only to find out it was really about Bill Simmons just trying to be a nerdy wrestling fan. Like, he just wanted to relive the history of professional wrestling, and very much. I thought it was unfair to all the many people they interviewed that after the stories come out that Vince McMahon is a horrendous human being. Is just an awful.
The Undertaker take a bullet for him. Though.
Right. That's what it's clear they recorded all of these interviews before those stories came out. So you have all of these people profusely praising Vince McMahon, and they have to put up the thing well, these interviews were recorded before, but no one gets that context. It just looks awful for John Cena, who's going on about how great of a promoter Vince McMahon is, and there's no context for well, we tried to interview him again but he didn't want to do it. Yeah, he didn't want to do it because he doesn't want to come on and talk about how the guy was sex trafficking humans.
See, it's crazy too because I love a lot of those ancillary stories that came out. I didn't know about Hulk Hogan basically screwing over the union they were trying to form, or Jesse Ventura was, by telling on everyone.
Yep.
I knew a lot about the Bret Hart incident because, again, that was right in my wheelhouse, but there was still more information that I wasn't privy to. And then I tried to do all the same stuff that big wrestling fans did. You're online, you're listening to some shows, you're trying to, you're reading what's going on and what they think's going to happen at the next pay-per-view. But I forgot all about the Lex Luger thing that he had wrestled on WCW.
That's right.
And then Eric Bischoff just brings him out hey, what's up? He doesn't have a contract, so screw you. There was a lot of really cool things they did. And the sad part about wrestling is you can't write that story without Vince McMahon.
So the thing is, if you just and they did a Monday Night Wars doc, but it was produced by WWE, so it was but the Monday Night Wars. Fascinating, right? What you just talked about, that is incredible. But that was what I just think that Bill Simmons was the wrong guy for this. I think he's too much of a nerdy fanboy, and I think a lot of people appreciate that about Bill Simmons. I'm not a Bill Simmons fan. I never really have been. And maybe if Bill Simmons wasn't a maybe it's just part of that is how much I hate Boston, right? I have no interest in Boston fanboy. It does nothing for me. That's like everybody else. I just think he was the wrong guy for what this ended up needing to be, which became, hey, by the way, we need to look deeper into how truly evil Vince McMahon might have been, and how, again, much like a certain presidential candidate, maybe his rise isn't about how smart he is as much as he's the one guy that was willing to not pay people. Here's how I can find a market inefficiency. I'll just do very illegal things that other people aren't willing to do, and if I get away with them, then I'll find success. And maybe if you're going to do a Vince McMahon documentary, you need to be more willing to be more critical about that and say, hey, we all love the WWE, but those things that we kind of glossed over when we talked about how he took over the territories, maybe we should spend a little more time considering if the success, it's not really about Vince McMahon being a genius as much as it's about him being the one guy that was willing to do extraordinarily shitty things that other people weren't willing to do.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Vince McMahon stealing the best wrestlers from the other factions and taking them back there to wrestle is like some guy stealing your girlfriend and showing up at the bar that you hang out with her all the time now. Like, hey, look what I'm working with.
Right.
And that was, some of the things he did was extraordinary to help wrestling, the sport, whatever you want to call it. But I agree with you. Like, I want some more of that in-depth stuff. And I was, after watching it, I started going back and watching other wrestling documentaries too.
Yeah.
It kind of gets you in that mode, and you're always looking for things to watch on TV. And you and I talk about it all the time. Like right now, The Penguin is probably the best thing on TV.
Oh, I haven't started watching it yet because I didn't get to see the reviews weren't all that great for it.
Oh, it's so effing good, and Colin Farrell is so good.
Okay.
And the thing that I love about him, he said that he's going to everybody's going to be pissed off at the season finale, which makes me happy because it doesn't, like when he says pissed off, I don't think it's going to be bad. I think something just horrendous is going to happen that people aren't expecting. So
I will spend time with that.
And are you watching? Have you seen From?
What is From? I haven't even heard of From.
From has a few actors in it you'd recognize, but it's basically. Were you a Lost fan?
Okay, I was, but you know what? I've never gone back. It's the same thing. My Lost problem was I didn't get to watch every episode. And so I kind of checked out on Lost because I was behind on things, and I've never gone back and watched from start to finish.
So this has the same feeling to me, and I think it is from the Lost writers. Okay. It's if Lost was a scary or horror movie, like it's these people show up in this town. They don't know how they got there. There's a tree down in the road, and when they turn around, they wind up in this town, and they're stuck there. And there's these like evil people, creatures, whatever, that are trying to kill them. And it's night after night after night, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. And I really dig this show, but I feel like it's a lot like Lost. That they started writing it, it got successful, and it's like, oh, how are we ending this? So, but I do enjoy it. I watch it every week. It comes on Sundays.
I would be willing to take a gander at this. Did you watch Jailbreak?
Jailbreak.
That was
that the one you told me last week?
Yeah, that was the one. From
no,
last
let me. I got to find out where I have that.
All right,
because I do want to watch that.
It's Netflix. Watch Jailbreak for sure. I'm really embarrassed about the other one that I watched. Oh God.
What's that?
So Nobody Wants This.
Oh, we're
Kristen Bell.
My wife and I watched the first episode, but everybody says it's good, and it's been picked up for a second season.
It is good. It is good. I was actually angry that I didn't realize it was a show that I thought it was all just going to be told one story. I was actually angry when it ended. I was like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing more. I hate that I like that. I hate that I watched all of it. I really am mad at myself for the fact that that I watched all of it. I watched all of it and enjoyed it, and it was it is not something I'm proud of. It is not something that I'm okay with.
See, and again, like you're trying to, as you start watching some of this stuff and what you enjoy, what you don't like. My son went out and saw Terrifier 3, which I can't wait to see. Which is just an absolute gore fest.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Like, can we shock you with this?
Don't they put up a warning on the outside of the theater or something like that? And
I think when they showed the initial or the opening for it, there were 11 people that walked out in the first 7 minutes.
That's wild. I did not get to see Saturday Night. I want to see that, but my wife has no interest. So if somebody's looking for a date to see Saturday Night this week, I do want to.
Is that based on Saturday Night Live?
It's apparently the 2 hours leading up to the first ever episode of Saturday Night Live. It's a telling of how the first ever episode of Saturday Night Live came together. So it looks good to me. The reviews have been pretty good. I would like to see it. So if anybody wants a date to a movie this week, I'll be your date to a movie. I'm going to Stevie Wonder tomorrow night, so I'm not doing tomorrow night. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I had a buddy reach out to me. Hey man, you have any interest in going to Stevie Wonder? I'm like, what? What kind of question is that?
I'm seeing Billy Strings on November 1st.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, and it's funny because everybody says you got to go to his Halloween show, so I absolutely get the one after it. And I'm taking my producer, Joe. That was his Christmas gift. We were supposed to go to Pearl Jam. The tickets got ridiculous, and he said, let's just go to a different concert. So that's where we're going. But, I love bluegrass. I like all kinds of music.
Yeah.
But, I've never seen him play, and
I've never seen him either, honestly. And I would love – and that's at the arena, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I might have to figure out a way to make that
Green
one
is
happen.
fun spot now to watch some concerts.
Yeah, it
man.
is. It is. I agree with that. Completely agree. All right, buddy. What's coming up on the show?
So I think it's just going to be Rob and myself for most of the week. Ed has a home in Florida, and then the hurricane, he got an initial report from a neighbor like, oh, this is down. And then when his wife got back home, she was like, oh, my God. So he's going down to fix some of the issues down there and try to take care of it, and then he'll be back. But I don't know when, so it'll be Rob and I kind of breaking things down for most of the week with the Ravens, MLB playoffs, and everything else.
And, of course, ConcreteLocks.com with 2 N's, Concrete Locks.
Yeah, I've hit 4 locks in a row now. I feel like I should be 6-0 on the season, but I've just hit 4 in a row. My lock yesterday was the Ravens.
Well, look at that one worked out by a point. The number was 6.5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
But again, that was a weird game though, where I just felt like I don't like saying the Ravens dominated, but they kind of did. It was never
it's
really
deceptive.
in doubt.
It's nothing about it. Everybody in DC should feel good about Jayden Daniels. I just made Jayden Daniels and Lamar Jackson the same person. Jamar. Everybody should feel good about Jayden Daniels. But yesterday really was a story about the difference between the two teams. Like, they're not as good as the Ravens are. Deceptively, it looks like a one-score game, but that's because the Ravens didn't want to score any more points at the end of the game. Like, if they had chosen to, they would have won by multiple scores. The Ravens punted once after the interception. They punted.
Yeah, the goofy interception off the hands too.
Correct.
Like I'm not blaming anybody for that, but by God, if the announcers wouldn't shut up about Washington not having an interception,
yeah,
and then
of course it happened. All right, buddy. Love you. We'll talk to you next Monday. Thank you as always, bud.
Yeah, man. I'll see you.
Jeremy Conn with us is every Monday here on GCR. All right, we still have to do picks, recap, and pats on the ass. We still have a lot to do. Everybody came through today. It doesn't happen like that normally. So we'll do that when we come back in. Glenn Clark Radio. Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hey Baltimore, it's number 10, Arthur Millette, and I'm hoping you'll slot us in all season long for the Arthur Millette Show. We will be traveling around the region all season, giving you the chance to get to know me and my teammates. There will be some football talk and a lot more. You can watch this show live on Pressbox's Facebook and YouTube pages and listen every Friday night on 105.7 The Fan. Find out more at pressboxonline.com/Millette. The Arthur Millette Show, the only show in town that's a work of art.
The next Arthur Millette Show is Wednesday, October 23rd at the Gourmet inside the shops at Kenilworth. It's brought to you by 1-800-GAMBLER and Easy Pass.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
I just saw that Hunter Dickinson was named a preseason All-American by CBS Sports, which is nice. I'm sure his grandkids will probably enjoy seeing that.
What is with Kansas having, because it was PJ?
Yeah, well, it was Perry Ellis was the one.
Yeah.
Perry Ellis played at Kansas for 50 years. In fact, I think they might still be teammates. God.
I thought for sure he was.
How is Hunter Dickinson still in college?
I know. I didn't know.
How?
I was like,
so I looked it up. He's only 23, but he'll be 24 when the season begins. Like in a couple of weeks, he turns 24 at the beginning of November. Like he's 24 years old. Yeah, he's 24 years old at the start of the college season. Not, oh God, Hunter, thank you for your service, Hunter.
Thank you for your service.
Enjoy. Jesus Christ. All right. It is a Monday. On Mondays, we got to go over picks, see how it is that we did. And normally that's something that gives me great consternation. But this week, tide has finally turned. Picks recap is brought to you.
You gotta keep it going.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not suggesting that suddenly everything is going to be
Connor
fine.
said, you can't rest on your laurels.
No. Picks recap brought to you by the Stay on the Fan Variety Hour, which is back this afternoon. They'll be talking. What time does the baseball start today? Is it a 4 o'clock? Yeah.
4 and 8. Is that right?
I think that's right.
Or is it like 4 and 7?
I think that's correct. They're going to start at the same time. They're going to start at 4 o'clock. Stan, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson, talking baseball with you, talking about the championship series and Orioles topics. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports is how you catch it live. If you miss it, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. All right, here we go. Yeah, not great. Not great. I finally learned my lesson and didn't bet Maryland on Friday night, which is good because they came just a little shy of covering as 10.5-point favorites. They weren't quite able to cover as 10.5-point favorites. They a game effort, but just fell a little bit. They fell 37.5 points short of doing that.
They out-yarded them.
That's the goofy part about Friday's game, is that like, and again, admittedly, I was watching on a phone inside St. Elmo Steakhouse. I wasn't watching undistractedly or anything like that. To say it was a specific set of circumstances, you would say, dude, they lost by 27 points. Like, it wasn't a specific set of circumstances. But it was. Like, they moved the ball well right up until they didn't. And then they fell behind by like 10, and then they just started giving the ball away. It was a weird game. Now, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. If they had lost by 1 point, it was going to be a problem because their path to getting to 6 wins really kind of had to involve a home win over Northwestern. It's almost impossible to envision Maryland figuring out a way to get to 6 wins now. Like, it will take something that we couldn't possibly see coming. Now, there's a stat out there about how difficult it's been for Big Ten teams, the Washington, Oregon, like the teams traveling multiple time zones have had a.
Penn State was only the second one to, I think, win.
No, going the other way.
Going the other way is worse.
It's been like a nightmare. But Penn State was only the second one because Indiana also went to UCLA and beat UCLA on the road this year. So none of the ones that have come west to east have done it yet.
USC lost to Minnesota, was that last week?
Last week, yes. Yeah. Now you got a USC team that's lost back-to-back games.
Pissed
and
off.
Yeah, I don't feel good about that at all. But if there's a path to 6 wins, it's going to involve that. Like something like that's going to have to happen, because there aren't 3 more wins out there for this Maryland team now that these two.
So you don't think there's any shot at 7 wins, huh?
Oh yeah, sorry, dude. You're done. You're done. Well, I mean, if they can get to 6, they could win a bowl game. Like,
do those count? I don't
Yeah.
think they count as.
yeah,
I
they
think
count
it
as
was
your
regular
final
season.
record
Okay.
includes your bowl game. Yes.
All right.
Oh, now if the bet specifically said regular
I
season,
forget what it said.
that's
I
different.
was basing it off of regular season.
Yeah. It's bad, man. It's bad. Now, this is the bit, right? Because, again, mouth breathers, this is what we do. All we have, because we don't really pay attention. This is the truth. Because the people that are commenting only watch when the game's on, and really only watch when the game's on, and they got nothing else to do. Like on Friday night, there was nothing else to watch, so you were watching the Maryland game. The people that are commenting, the people that go to, oh, you got to fire the coach. You just say, I don't pay attention. I don't have anything else. I don't have a conversation to be had here. And that's fine. There were throws that Billy Edwards missed. There were also throws that he made that the play wasn't made. Like, there was a lot going on there. You want to have a conversation about should you reconsider getting some more snaps for one of the other quarterbacks? We can talk about it, but Billy Edwards, for the most part, has been one of the things that's gone right for Maryland football. The disappointing part is the things that we knew were problems, like the offensive line. There had been encouraging signs early on that maybe some of these offensive linemen could step up and be ready to go. They haven't been. That's come apart. And sometimes that's the reason why Billy Edwards finds himself rifling a ball in, because he just feels like he's got to get it out of his hands as quickly as humanly possible. That's been disappointing. The defense has been disappointing, particularly given some of the players they have. It's been disappointing.
The fact they have not won a game out of the bye.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Coach
like,
Loxley.
bizarre.
That's
really bizarre. Now, again, not all of those are made equal.
Right.
They're not all home games against Northwestern. This one is an abomination. You'd have to go back and look at what all the other games were. If some of these were against Ohio State, well, you weren't winning that game no matter when they played it. It just happened to be the game that was played after the bye. This one is an abomination. But I keep coming back to, I don't know what you think Maryland football is. Like, I don't know what you think it's supposed to be. And I hate saying it that way, because what I'm saying is there's no way it can be good. Well, I got to be honest with you. The sport ain't set up for that. This is not like, you know, you're a baseball fan and you watch like every other team while the Orioles are bad between 97 and 2011, or 98 and 2011, and saying, wow, well, it's not just the Yankees that are winning. Like, there are other teams that are figuring out ways to win. College football is not set up to allow for outsiders to have a chance. It's just not. And every now and then there's some new team that has like a moment, and you're like, wow, that's kind of neat to see Iowa State be semi-relevant for 5 seconds. Do you think that, you tell me, has that been sustained?
What?
Iowa State?
Iowa State. I
Yeah.
mean,
have they sustained success?
no.
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 What programs sustain success? It's all the same ones. It is a sport that is set up for haves and have-nots. That's the way the sport is set up. I can't help here. Wake Forest made an Orange Bowl once. Kansas made an Orange Bowl once. And threatened to be good again last year. It's not sustainable. Because the sport isn't set up for that. There was hope that maybe NIL could help a program like Maryland, until we realized that it wasn't going to be NIL, it was going to be the other thing, which, again, I don't have a problem with. If it was NIL, maybe Maryland could be helped by the number of big businesses in the area, but ultimately those big businesses don't care about Maryland football. So I think we would have gotten our answer. I think we had this like outside hope of like, there's a lot of big businesses here. Maybe they don't care. They have other places to spend their money. It's just there is not an infrastructure to exist to allow for Maryland to succeed. So you can do one of two things. You can just keep running in coaches for eternity. You can keep saying, let's just find 80 hotshot coordinators and hope that one of them can high-end win like one of these games, and Maryland could win tops 9 games in a season, and then that guy's gone immediately afterwards. Because the high end isn't you roll the dice and you find a guy that can get Maryland into the national championship picture. That's never happening. It's like suggesting Wrexham could win the Champions League. It will never occur. God bless Ryan Reynolds. And actually, I was doing some prep work on Saturday morning. I watched College Game Day for the first time in
you're missing out. It's been a good program.
Oh, I love College Game Day. When I was a young person, I watched College Game Day religiously. But, it's an adult. I got kids. I got other things to do on Saturdays. I'm going to go to soccer.
Well, you
and
let
stuff
them
like that.
know.
Yeah, right. I can't do it.
I have to watch 3 hours of college football preview.
It's a worse show than it used to be. It's more social media, quick hitter. This is what. But I mean, I get it. That's culture now. We can't do in-depth stuff. We can do Pat McAfee yelling.
I think they do still do it solid. I mean,
when they do, and it when the stuff they did, the story of the Jewish quarterback at BYU, whose name I've forgotten about,
Retzloff, right?
Yeah, Retzloff. Thank you. It's a great piece, man. When they do that stuff, it's great. But then they go right back to Pat McAfee yelling. Now, some of it is fun. Dude, the stuff with the Oregon mascot, holding up signs, was really fun. That's good TV. That really is. And then, you get a little bit of that, and then you get, I don't know, it's fine. It's all fine, right? It's all fine.
I think they're finding a good balance with, Nick Saban versus Pat McAfee.
I think they're trying to, but I don't think they've quite nailed it yet. I just think that it's easier to always default to, there's a huge crowd behind us, so to keep them engaged, we need Pat McAfee to yell more. That's just what we need. And it makes it a worse show. It needs more of the old Tom Rinaldi stuff, the Tom Rinaldi stuff. The packages are still really good. They're still really good for the most part. That one was very compelling. A little bit trite, but still compelling. It was still a really good story. There was another one that was the Dan Lanning thing with his wife.
Oh yeah,
it was incredible, right? That was amazing. So they still do some of that. That's really, really good. But it used to be a lot more of that, and that's what made the. There was a sign famously that.
I like the little field goal thing that they do.
Yeah, that's nothing. That's bad content.
I don't know if it's bad.
Nothing. There's nothing interesting about it. Tell me,
people care to watch.
Because that's TikTok. That's it's not good content. It's just we're dumb.
Sure, but
in no way is it.
It takes 5 minutes. It's fun.
It's not interesting to see whether or not a college kid can make an extra point. That's not interesting. It adds nothing.
Get to see, I like feeling like I'm on the campus a little bit for part of it,
if the part of they wander into the crowd, so that's interesting. I guess I don't know, maybe, but it's definitely not interesting content. It adds, it's 5 minutes less of what could be interesting content, and the picks aren't interesting either. But Caitlin Olsen was excellent. She was genuinely nervous, which was fun because she doesn't know anything about college football. So she's like, guys, I'm nervous. I appreciated that. And then she nailed it on Huck the Fuskies. That was great. You could tell she was genuinely in Oregon. That was good. Anyway, I don't know how we got here. Oh, Maryland.
Because we don't want to talk about Maryland.
This is the reality. If you think that Maryland football is ever going to be, if you convinced yourself that Ralph Friedgen getting Maryland to an Orange Bowl means that Maryland football could be that, you're adult. You're allowed to have, in this sport, you're allowed to have a year where things could miraculously line up and you could still not win a national championship, but you could be at the edge of relevance. And remember, if back in the day, this is the part that I don't want to say out loud, if there was an ACC championship game that year, Maryland probably doesn't win the ACC. They couldn't beat Florida State. They just got lucky that other teams did. And because there was no ACC championship game, they got to be ACC champions.
It could have been the 2024 Florida State team.
That's it. That would have been helpful. Yes, that would have been very helpful. This is what makes us so silly. People want to dismiss the last 3 years because they didn't win the ACC or didn't win the Big Ten. They're never going to win the Big Ten.
Well.
Never. Ever, ever. But what happened over the last 3 years was the height of what Maryland football can do. And you got that. Now it appears as though you're taking a step backwards this year. That ain't great. And if it continues for 2 more years, then we're going to have the conversation of ultimately, really, can Mike Locksley do anything, or did he just find the best quarterback that he was going to find, and they were able to win some games because of that? We'll find that out. But this thing where you just constantly want to fire the football coach at Maryland because they're not winning the Big Ten, guys, that you got to reconsider. Maryland is what it is. I can't help you if you're unwilling to recognize that. And I get that internally they can't come out and say that, because then why would you go to the games? But you don't go to the games anyway, for what it's worth. Anyway, yeah, I get it. That's my piece that I'll say about Maryland football, because we're going to do the show till 1 o'clock again today. God damn it. Anyway, other games. Texas, Oklahoma. It did end up being a blowout. I did not realize that Oklahoma was without their top 5 wide receivers. Some factual information that would have been good to know before I made
it.
Would
it have mattered?
What's that?
Would it have mattered?
I do think it would have mattered if they had their top 5 wide receivers. I don't know that they would have covered, but, it would have been far more compelling. Yeah, it would have been more compelling. Anyway, sorry, I didn't even say who was on who in these games. In the first game, we were pretty split. Myself, Steck, Jeremy, Ken, and Ryan were all on Northwestern. In the second game,
Sharps is what they call it.
Yeah, is that what they call us? In the second game, James, Jeremy, John and Little Rock, John Proctor, KZ, Kyle, and Paul were on Texas. Ohio State, Oregon, great game. Man. Phenomenal game, man. Will Howard, what are you doing? What in the world are you doing, guy?
What about the kid who spit on the
Oregon kid? Yeah,
who spit on the Ohio State.
Yeah, that's totally unacceptable. I know he's put out an apology, but dude, what is going on between the Alabama kid last week and the Oregon kid this week? By the way, this is what has happened is these guys know they're not going to face discipline, for anything, because the teams have just gotten to a point where they said, "You want us to be without our best players? You want us to suspend the good players, the ones that are helping us win, when my job is defined by whether or not we win?" No. Malachi Moore from Alabama was right back out there on Saturday against South Carolina. I watched a little bit of that game because it was the game that was on after College Game Day. Was right back out on the field, because what is Kalen DeBoer going to do? Punish him? Punish him? You want me to punish this guy? I'm punishing me if I do that. So, at some point, this is why there's no governing body. The NCAA is toothless. The whole thing is toothless. So, you're asking the schools to handle it internally, and that's what they're going to say every time. Well, we've handled it internally. Sure you have. I'm so sure. But the players are now recognizing that kind of no matter what they do, there ain't going to be punishment for it. I don't know what it would take. I mean, if the league has to be willing to step in, and now there's pressure on the league, you don't want to punish the good players, because we want the good teams to be good. It's important that Alabama be good. That's very good for the SEC. If Alabama's good, it's better for the SEC. It's good for business. Oregon, the Big Ten's going to step in and punish them? Right now, they want to make sure that they get that Ohio State-Oregon rematch in the championship game, right? That's big bucks. So the league's supposed to step in and punish these guys? Say they're not allowed to play? So just lather, rinse, repeat. Put out some statement. Oh, it's not a reflection of who I am. It's toothless. It's toothless. There's just nothing. No one's punishing anybody for their actions. But a hell of a game. Damn good game outside of Ohio State. That's what I say about football. Every time you guys talk about how the Ravens are the worst in-game coaches, I just come back to, you're just not watching football. There are no one is managing the clock the way that you think the Ravens are supposed to. And that's not me letting them off the hook.
And that's why we watch it.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen at the end.
It is, there are no teams are doing the thing that you think the Ravens are supposed to be doing. And it continues at the college level, where Ryan Day just sits there and watches the clock run after offensive pass interference call in the final minute. Where he's just like, we're good. We got plenty of time. Yeah, sure, we're very far away. They ended the game with a timeout in their pocket. They ended the game with a timeout that they didn't call because Will Howard didn't get down in time for them to even have a long field goal attempt. It was wild.
That was that was his only loss to a team not named Michigan in the regular season, right?
No, they had lost to Oregon a couple years ago at home. Okay. Yeah. Big Ten game. That makes sense. Yes, Big Ten. That does make sense. Andrew Steck. On Oregon, myself, Griffin, Jeremy, Joe, John Proctor, KZ, and Ryan Chell. For a Thursday night game, I did feel like for a moment, I'm like, hell yeah, Seattle's right back in this. We got a chance. Not for very long. Andrew Steck, KZ, and Kyle were the only ones on San Francisco. Got a free point there. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, did not go. It's that the bloom is off the Saints' rose at this point. It ain't great.
It was close for 3 quarters.
By the way, remember we kept saying after the first few weeks the schedule would let up for the Ravens? When we get into that part? When does that part come where the schedule starts to let up?
They were They were 0-2, and everyone was like, all right, well, at least they got week 6 against the Commanders.
Yeah. And then you're like, everything starts to get a little bit easier from there. Does it? The Ravens go on the road to Tampa next week.
They're at the Browns after Tampa.
Okay, thank God. So they get a 1-week respite against a team that can't convert a third down. Oh, they did yesterday, right?
Eventually.
They finally got one.
0 for 26.
Yeah, they finally got one.
0 for 26.
Anyway, Tampa covers easily on the road. Myself, Griffin, everybody but I got to go the other way on this one. Everybody but Steck, James, Jeremy, and Joe were on Tampa there. The easiest pick of the entire week, Arizona. You knew there was going to be a letdown after they beat San Francisco. You knew. And it was colossal letdown. But yet, for some reason, Andrew Steck, which is oh, right, he's trying to lose. That's right, so he can.
Or is he just an Arizona homer? Wait a minute.
No, because it's normally the other way around. He normally knows better. He never bets Arizona because of that. John Proctor.
I feel like he did this one on purpose.
Kyle and Ryan Chell, who again is leading our competition, we're all on Arizona. I'll never understand that. That was the easiest call to me in football history. This one actually ended up getting a little bit interesting. It was a blowout for a while. And then I look up. I'm like, what the hell?
Are you kidding me? This is
right. But ultimately, the Chargers do hold on and not just win, but cover against the Broncos. Myself, Griffin, James, Jeremy, John in Little Rock, and John Proctor were all on the Chargers. A loser lone wolf, as Kyle Ottenheimer was on Dallas. And much like Maryland, they came up just short.
Lone Wolves are 1-5 now.
Yeah, it's not been a good year for Lone Wolves. KZ, what was KZ's Lone Wolf pick? What was his win?
He had.
Watch it be picking against Maryland. Watch it be a.
No, it wasn't. Where
was KZ one? Was the only one that
it
won?
was. It was the Michigan State one.
There you go. Yeah. And then most everybody was on Baltimore. The only ones on Washington were John in Little Rock, Kyle Ottenheimer, and Ryan Chell. So for the week, KZ, the high watermark, 8-1. Myself and Jeremy Conn behind him, 7-2. 6-3 for John Proctor and Griffin. 5-4 for James, Paul, John in Little Rock. Most everybody had a good week. Ryan, Andrew Stecca, Joe Serpico, 4-5, and the low water mark was Kyle Ottenheimer at 3-6. So now for the year, Ryan Chell, things tighten up a little bit. Ryan Chell just 1 game ahead of KZ and James at the top of the table. 2 games clear of Paul and John in Little Rock. 3 games ahead of Kyle, Griffin, and Jeremy Conn.
Perfectly average,
and then a slight, that's true, dead 500. And then a slight
secondary,
dip.
Baby.
You know what? That's exactly what you are. Slight dip. I'm at the bottom of the table. But now only 1 game behind Andrew Stecca and Joe Serpico. So Stecca, very much in play to avoid losing in spectacular fashion and be allowed to quit the league. That's the other.
Or he could just straight up lose.
He could. No, if he straight up loses, he doesn't get out of the league.
Right, no.
He's either got to win
or
he's got to avoid losing in spectacular fashion. And then John Proctor is 2 games now in front at 28-32 in the race for last place and all the terrible Brazilian punishment that you have to pay if you lose. All right, now, pats on the ass. Tell everybody how what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel.
You get free $7 in slot play whenever Baltimore or Washington scores a touchdown during their home games. This is for Live Rewards members who have their Live Rewards card inserted correctly and into the slot machine. Any slot machine on the floor, you have to be actively playing to get your prize, but once Baltimore or Washington scores a touchdown during their home games, you will get $7 in free slot play. Valid for slot play only at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right. You know the drill. You got to pick 5 Ravens. 2 must be offensive players. 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5-1, with number 1 being your man of the match. Who you got? Pats on the ass. At Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. You get in, and someone is going to win $50 to spend at the Costas Inn on a seafood tower, on delicious cream of crab soup, and whatever it is that you want. I had the jalapeno crab poppers. They were so good. CostasInn.com. Boy, the wind just started whipping outside the window. That was a little unnerving.
That's just what my watch always says. Like, it's like cloudy or sunny or something. It just says windy right now.
All right. Anyway, here we go. Pats on the ass. For me, the defensive players were easy. There were only 2 that I really even considered for the game. My number 5 is Kyle Hamilton, who maybe didn't have the splash plays yesterday that he has in some games. The tackle that was not a penalty is the closest thing to a splash play. But he was just Kyle Hamilton. He was all over the field. He was making plays. That's what makes Kyle Hamilton special. And you saw it yesterday. He was my number 5.
Yeah, he was my number 5 as well. Obviously, didn't quite fill up the stat sheet like he sometimes can. But he's just letting everybody else make plays. I feel like Marlon plays freer because of him as well. Nate Wiggins started having he had obviously there was the PI late in the game, but overall I think Nate Wiggins had a pretty solid game. He's just sending the message too, laying out Terry McLaurin. There was a hit, I think it was in the first half when he laid out Jayden Daniels after he got a ball away, and just kind of sending the message that he's the leader of that defense. And Kyle Hamilton,
number 4 is where I put Travis Jones, who was the only other defensive player that I thought warranted consideration from the day. Not to say again, I don't think the defense was an abomination yesterday. It just there weren't a lot of big plays being made during the course of the game. Travis Jones has been a rock star. The sack stands out, but he's just been unbelievable on top of that.
Yeah, I think the front looked pretty good. They barely got 50 rushing yards.
Yeah,
the Commanders did. Obviously, they had to
they didn't really try all that much. Yeah.
But Travis Jones, obviously the sack was big. Ngakoue, I think, looked good. He didn't play a ton.
That's the problem. If there weren't candidates, I could have considered Ngakoue, but there were 2 good candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So Ngakoue couldn't really be considered because he just wasn't on the field all that much.
I thought Nnamdi Madubuike looked good too. He's either getting held or he's making a play. That's
okay.
Kind of.
I'll listen to the argument.
How I see him. But Travis Jones is my number 4.
This is where it becomes interesting for me, right? Because there were 2 offensive players to me that had to be on the list. And then the guy that a lot of you put on your list didn't make my list. Derrick Henry didn't make my list. And it's not because I don't value what Derrick Henry did. It's that, to me, the story of the game wasn't really about Derrick Henry. It was just that, as the game went on, he helped put it on ice. Daniel Faalele made my list, man. I think Daniel Faalele has proven to be great. Not great's unfair. I thought he had a really good day yesterday. And the 2 things that stood out to me most were, 1, on Lamar's long run, he has a huge block that springs that. And then 2, the screen to Zay Flowers at the beginning of the game, you got to go back and watch Daniel Faalele hoofing it down the field. Running almost as fast as Zay Flowers down the field on that play. Daniel Faalele was really good. Was really, really good. And, Ronnie Stanley would be the other offensive lineman I think continues to stand out. But Daniel Faalele is my number 3.
Yeah, I thought obviously the snap with Linderbaum was really bad, but I think overall, after that point,
but that was enough to disqualify him from consideration.
The O-line looked good. I thought Todd Monken had a good day too.
I think he was worthy of consideration.
Yeah,
it's tough for me because I'm a Rashad Bateman guy to leave Rashad Bateman off the list, but I couldn't have put him over Henry either. If I had gone a different direction than Faalele, it would have been Henry. But
Zay Flowers was my number 3. Because I did have Henry on my list, and Henry was going to be my number 2. I mean, they both were just great, and the O-line obviously played a big factor in it, but I mean, Derrick Henry just, again, 24 carries again.
I get it.
Wearing them down.
I get it. Zay Flowers is my number 2. And look, I get it about Derrick Henry. To me, it's about the story of the game, and maybe I'm discrediting how important the back end of the story of the game is, but like how you got there early on, Derrick Henry really wasn't doing a lot early in the game. It was as the game went on, you got more of that steady dose of Derrick Henry. Think they got their separation because of how good Zay Flowers was. Zay Flowers is my number 2.
Yeah. So I went Flowers 3, Henry 2.
And then, you might have heard of him. You might have
Ben
heard
Cleveland,
of him.
yeah.
Exactly right. It was a hell of a block. Somebody did have Ben Cleveland on their list, and I was like, what? What? CJ had Cleveland at 5, Jones 4, Hamilton 3, Flowers 2, Henry 1. He left Lamar off the list.
So, yeah, he did. He left Cleveland for Lamar. All right.
Yeah.
He doesn't want Lamar to get content with.
I guess. Randy Morgan agreed with me, did not have Henry on the list. He put Todd Monken on as his number 3, and I'm good with that. A lot of people had Derrick Henry number 1. Weird day where like the defensive players, not much disagreement there. And like there were 2 guys, but the offense, the other ones, there was a little bit of disagreement. Continue to get me yours at Glenn Clark Radio. And again, somebody is winning a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. All you got to do is participate. Even if your list is wrong, as long as it has 5 Ravens who qualify, 2 offensive players, 2 defensive players, you are in. You could win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. And now let's get Tidbit.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, what you got?
Drake May became the first quarterback since at least 1950 to throw 3 touchdowns and lead his team in rushing in his first career start.
I swear to God, I just looked up like, what are you watching on the screen here? Not realizing it was the commercial because there's a little bit of a delay.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, so we have the show up on the screen, and it was the commercial. And I was like, what the hell is Griffin doing over here? Oh, it's the commercial. My bad.
So we love them, Cruise Maryland.
I do. I love them a great deal. But when you just look up for a second and you're used to seeing this shot on the screen, the shot that everybody's seeing currently, and I look up and I saw something else, I was just like, what? Go ahead.
Yeah, so Drake May, the Patriots fans, saying they got another.
Let's ease up on all that.
NFC North is a combined 17-5.
Yeah, that part's nuts, right?
773 winning percentage. First time in NFL history, the division has had a 750 combined winning percentage through Week 6 or later in the season. That's 17-5 for the NFC North. This was an interesting one I saw. So it's the percentage of drives ending in points for every team. I guess really quickly, do you think how many of the top 5 do you think you can name real quick? Drives ending in points. So the number 1 one has 62%.
I would say the Ravens.
The Ravens are top 5. They're not number 1. They're at 47% right now.
Commanders?
Commanders are number 1. 62% of their drives ending in points.
They didn't punt in the.
Yeah, that's right. They had jeez.
How about? I'll still try the Bengals.
Yes, the Bengals.
Yeah,
48%. They are 3rd.
Yeah. And then rounding out the top 5, rounding out Detroit.
Yes, Detroit tied with the Bengals actually, 48%.
If I go 5 for 5,
so you're missing number 2 on the list.
Buffalo.
Not Buffalo.
Damn it.
Buffalo is 9th. Yeah, 9th.
Houston.
Nope.
All right, tell me.
Texans. Where are the Texans? Wow, Texans are only at 39%. They're a little bit further down.
That's a little surprising.
I guess because they always just get touchdowns. The 49ers are number 2.
Okay.
51%.
See, this is why you left the Vikings out of your.
Exactly.
See, you're totally justified.
Thank you. Do you want to try the bottom 5?
Oh, God. Bottom 5. All right, the Titans.
Titans are bottom 7. Not bottom 5.
The Jaguars.
No. It's 34% for the Jags.
They just drop touchdowns all the
10.
time.
Yeah.
The Browns.
Yes, the Browns are tied for. So there's 3 teams that are only scoring on 25% of their drives, and it is the Browns are one of them.
The Jets.
Not the Jets.
Okay.
Jets are bottom 8.
The Giants.
They're tied with the Titans. Surprisingly, not the Giants. Giants are they're 30% bottom 6. Top 6.
Steelers?
Not the Steelers. So that is how I stumbled onto the stat. It was a Steelers writer. They're top. I think they're top 12 somehow, which is very surprising. I think they kick a lot of field goals.
Okay. Panthers.
Bottom 5.
Cardinals.
Not the Cardinals. Cardinals in the top half of the league.
Well, then we're getting to the point where there's only a few teams left. The Dolphins, because they lost their quarterback.
Dolphins are at 25%. So Browns and Dolphins tied with one other team.
The Broncos?
Not the Broncos.
I was going to say, they've been a little bit
Broncos
better.
are tied with the Jets and Titans.
There's only so many teams left now. The Rams.
Not the Rams.
These are Chargers.
Not the Chargers.
These are teams I wouldn't expect to be on this list. That's why I'm. The Patriots.
Yes, the Patriots. Patriots, Browns, Dolphins are all.
You know what
bottom
happened?
3.
It's the thing where you were talking about the Patriots, and so I just it's on me.
Then to round out the bottom 5, it's a team that the Ravens have lost to.
Oh God, yeah, that one does.
Raiders and then Panthers, who you did say.
All right.
All right, I guess we're
let me
good
just
there.
leave it at that.
But I guess I should say the Dodgers have tied for the longest scoreless streak in innings pitched.
It's kind of nuts.
History.
It really is kind of nuts.
They are tied with the 1966 Baltimore Orioles at 33.
That was a really good pitching staff.
Yeah, at 33.
This is not a really good pitching staff. That's what makes this so
also
stunning.
3 straight shutouts, also tied for the longest streak in postseason history with the 66 Orioles and the 1905 New York Giants.
I was hoping it was the Bridegrooms, actually. I was really hoping. I've been sitting on this one, so I just want to delete this from my last week. Lamar Jackson was named Offensive Player of the Week in the NFL. It means that in franchise history, he has now received the second most Player of the Week awards. Behind who?
So either side of the ball. Player of the Week. How many is Lamar at right now?
Lamar is at 11.
Wow.
The person ahead of him has 12.
Justin Tucker.
Justin Tucker is the answer. That is correct. And the other one is, since entering the NFL in 2018, Jackson's 11 Player of the Week awards are the second most among any player in the league. Behind?
So, like I say, not Justin Tucker. Man, it's got to be. So since coming in, Player of the Week, who would have more?
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes.
Not Patrick Mahomes.
Derrick Henry.
Not Derrick Henry. I will give you, because we can't be here until 3 in the afternoon, that it is an offensive player.
Shoot. Is it a quarterback?
It's an. I mean, most days no, but today
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen is the answer. Josh Allen has 16.
Wow.
16 since 2018. How about that? So there you go. We'll see if there's any more coming the way of who's going to be Player of the Week this week. Who?
I mean, Lamar threw for 300.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield had a big game.
Yeah. Caleb Williams maybe.
He did have a really good game.
They do an
AFC, NFC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So none of those guys. Is there another AFC player that I'm not thinking of that had a massive game?
Probably.
Yeah, whatever. All right, not worth it. Not worth it. Let's leave it alone. Let's do this.
Experience the thrill of the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, coming October 17th to 20th. See the world's best equestrians compete in the sport of eventing, the ultimate test of horse and rider. Enjoy a weekend festival featuring local food, shopping, and fun for all. Come for the event and stay for the experience in Cecil County, home to the Chesapeake Bay waterfront, vibrant small towns, and family entertainment. Tickets on sale now at maryland5star.us.
All right, here's what's coming up totally tubular-wise this evening. As we mentioned earlier, 2 baseball games. Not one but dose, as the ALCS gets underway tonight at 7:37 on TBS. It's Alex Cobb and the Guardians against Alex Cobb starting Game 1 of the ALCS. What a word. Against Carlos Rodon and the Yankees. Have the Dodgers announced a starting pitcher for tonight yet?
Darn it, I was just looking.
I would assume since it was...
No, they have not. I mean, maybe they have. But
since it was Flaherty, God, who would it be? I actually don't remember. Yeah, right.
Flaherty ate up 7 innings yesterday.
Yeah, God. Mets-Dodgers Game 2 at 4:08, so 1 o'clock in L.A. Mets Dodgers this afternoon on Fox. Sean Manaea going for the Mets, and I don't know who's going for the Dodgers. You got it?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. Bills Jets. Hi, Leah. We're still finishing the show because we're very behind today. Bills Jets 8:15 on ESPN. There's a Manning Cast on ESPN2.
Jack Harris says it is Ryan Brazier is listed as the opener.
Okay, there you go.
So it looks like they're bullpenning again.
NHL Network, Red Wings Rangers at 7 o'clock. Monumental preseason hoops, Wizards Nets at 7:30. Also NBA TV, Sixers Hawks at 7:30. Mavs Clippers at 10:30. USA Network for WWE Monday Night Raw at 8. Anything non-sports?
No, not really. On Hulu, Family Guy, a Halloween special with apparently Glenn Powell is also in it.
Sure,
has a voice in it. So
sure,
check that out.
My bad. Proctor's been Proctor. I'm sorry, Proctor. Proctor's been guessing. I'm sorry.
I should do a better job of looking too.
Yeah, really. This is kind of on both of us. Anyway, anything? Because
no,
it's sure as hell
that
not
is
the Family Guy
thing. That
All
is
right.
a season 1 finale of English Teacher.
I do. I have stayed with that show. I have stayed with it. It's a fun show. All right, very good. Thanks today to Qadry Ismail. Thanks to Trey Wingo. Thanks to Femi. Thanks to Jeremy Conn. Thanks to Clark Judge. We'll get all of it up in the greatest hits section of the
Here we go.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com.
Mets are dead.
Yeah. Anything?
Stuff and things.
Okay, Stuff and Things tomorrow. Joe Serpico for sure, and Stuff and Things. Thanks everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including I was afraid that somebody moved my binder. Maryland 5-Star Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Crown Trophy, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Casa Sin, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great evening. Do we care? Oh, go not Yankees. That's what we care
about. I need 40 points
nope,
from James
don't
Cook.
care about that. Don't care about
you
that.
do it?
No. Have a great Monday evening. Go not Yankees. Duke sucks.